Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Yeah.
You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show till Mets do us part. John from Brooklyn, Ibby reps NJ. With the other team, I don't care what your friends say. Mets fans, we focus like a sensei. Listen to the podcast Monday, Wednesday. Made a couple bad plays, but we still won. Character, yup, we're gonna build some. Are you gonna check the pod? Is real fun. Just like Mookie, I will sign. So invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show.
Available now on all streaming platforms. If you love the New York Mets, check out Till Mets Do Us Part. Enough rapping. Let's get to yapping.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Till Mets Do Us Part. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Twitter like we are each and every single week, Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time or thereabouts, starting a couple minutes late this week. And I think people are sort of used to that at this point. But in either case, John Saponaro coming to you from Burbank, California, where the weather has returned to Southern California style. And I am happy about that. And my co-host, Matt Ibanez, holding things down back in New Jersey. Ibby, I'm not going to poke fun at the weather. I hope that the weather is good. I think that the weather is probably starting to turn back on the East Coast. So with all that said, how you feeling, man?
I'm feeling fantastic, John. Yes, the weather has been picking up. It's a nice, cool, crisp 65 degrees today. It feels like 90, but it feels fantastic. And yes, the weather is turning. Spring feels like it's finally sprung. We are near the end of spring training. We got a lot to talk about when it comes to our New York Mets. And as always, the red light's on. It's Wednesday. I'm pumped up because I'm sure I sound a little bit different to everyone this week because I finally upgraded my equipment. I got myself a nice new mic arm so I can move things around here. I got a brand new microphone in front of me. I'm feeling good. Hopefully I sound good to everyone. And I pray to God that my Wi-Fi, cooperates this week so we can actually hear my voice as opposed to watching me being a frozen still the entire time I'm being choppy. But all that being said, there's plenty to talk about our New York Mets. Let's get into it. Let's have some fun. You're muted, John.
Damn it. Let's not waste any time. I didn't want to jinx it. I was going to say so far so good with regards to Ibby and his Wi-Fi, and then I accidentally clicked the mute button because I'm a dumb idiot. So anyway, let's get into the Mets conversation. But yeah, shout out to you for getting that Shure mic. I think you and I now have the same microphone, or at least it looks like we do. It's great. I've loved it from the moment I've had it. Shout out to Aunt Rivera, Subway to Shay. He's the one who turned me on to this one. And it's been great. So I upgraded a couple months ago. Ibby went and got his now. So hopefully, the sound is consistent. Everything, we never really had an issue with sound quality, but this should make it even that much better, especially when you're on the audio only side. You never know what's going to happen. Wi-Fi issues aside, you never know what's going to happen with a live stream. Sometimes things just get a little quirky, but this will definitely help if you are somebody who listens to the show, whether it's on Spotify, Apple, or wherever else you get your podcasts. You can certainly hear the difference starting tomorrow when we drop the audio version of this episode. But keep in mind that this show is free and available on Apple, Spotify, all of those places, plus YouTube for the live stream version. Speaking of the live stream, let's shout out all the folks who are joining us in the chat already. Over 60 people here with us, and as usual, that number will continue to climb. We have Charlie in the house, Stanley Babbage, Carlos Ramos. Hope Carlos is feeling better. I think he was a little under the weather last week or towards the end of last week, so him being here is a good sign. We've got Brad. We have Douglas Barnes, Stanley Babbage. Did I say that already? If I did, it's all good. Odd Villain is here. Shout out to Odd Villain. Armand, a lot of familiar faces. That's usually how it goes when we start the show. Zero Cool is here as well. We have Game for War in the house. I don't want to miss anybody, Ibby. You know how it goes. PB is here. Patty in NYC
Patty's in the
is
house,
back
yeah.
in the live show. Welcome back, Patty. It is nice to have you. Speaking of people, welcome back. Shay is here as well.
Shay's in the building.
Nice to see Shay. This is cool. Oh, Douglas, excuse me, Jeff Cohen. Hi, all. Leaving in a few to take my wife out for her birthday. LGM. Happy birthday.
Happy
to
birthday.
Jeff Cohen's wife. And thanks for jumping on for a couple minutes. I'm sure Jeff will catch the show either on repeat or on the audio version.
I had
also
also saw
maybe.
Yeah, I also saw that that Tom in the UK also joined us. He jumped in on the live. I don't know if he's sticking with us, but awesome to see somebody over in the UK. And Tom is awesome, and I'm glad that he's able to join us for a live. It's great, man. Good to see you.
Absolutely. Shout out to Tom. Loved when I was out in the UK last summer and got to hang out with a lot of people from Mets in the UK and Bat Flips and Nerds and just kind of watch the Mets Phillies game. It was a tremendous, awesome experience to be out there in a city that I love, watching a sport that I love with some good people. It was a tremendous experience from start to finish. Andrew Acevedo is here. We got D-Mac. Explosive Diarrhea is back in the house. Welcome back to Explosive. Tom saying, I'm sticking around, guys. And you
awesome, man. Good to
hear that. How's Ibby's Wi-Fi? The same? No splitter from Game for War? Ibby, did you look into the Wi-Fi? Inquiring minds want to know.
Well, I'm glad you asked that. It's in the works, and I was laughing because I got an email when I was talking with John about things, and before I even got a chance to put in a call, I got an email from Xfinity telling me that, hey, we're going to be upgrading your Wi-Fi speed by 75% free of charge. I'm just like, I guess you're listening to me. I guess Big Brother is always watching and listening, so they probably have heard me complain about this Wi-Fi speed and things of that nature. So my phone is doing the dirty work and hearing what I'm saying and then relaying that message over to Xfinity. So we'll see what happens. Fingers crossed, but I'm still doing more work into that Game for War to make sure that I am fully up to speed to where I should be in the year 2025 as opposed to 2000.
Ibby's Wi-Fi is on dial-up. That's what's going on with Ibby's Wi-Fi. I love the people. I love people that are just talking shit on Xfinity. Like Rosie saying Xfinity is awful at resolving issues. And then Odd Villain, in typical Odd Villain fashion, just goes, LOL, Xfinity, which is absolutely hilarious. But it is nice. It is nice to see so many folks returning to the live stream. And I think that's what's happening as a symptom of opening day being right around the corner. We're basically a week away. If you're listening to this tomorrow morning on the audio show, it's going to be 1 week out from opening day. And I think sometimes, you get bogged down a little bit with the minutia of the offseason. We've talked about the offseason fatigue and certainly the spring training fatigue. Ibby, when I lived on the East Coast and I had to deal with bad weather, the feeling of knowing that pitchers and catchers were reporting was great, not just as a baseball fan, but it meant man, the weather is going to turn. Soon we're going to have, summer nights. We're going to have longer days. Things are going to be, just that barbecues and you work as a teacher and school's going to be out. And it's just there's so many cool things about the start of spring training being that first little glimmer of hope. And then you start to hear cracks of the bat and you start to hear pops of the mitt. And all of that stuff is just man, this is so exciting. I'm so jazzed up for baseball. Even if your team's going to be terrible, I don't care if you're the White Sox. It's man, I'm just excited. I'm excited to break through and get out on the other side. But then you get into spring training. And when there's 2 weeks left of spring training, 3 weeks left, right where we are now, you're just can this be over?
Just drags.
It's funny how quickly it turns where it's the most exciting thing in the world. And then all of a sudden it's I'm done. I'm over this thing.
Yeah. I think a lot of times we get so excited because like you said, it's the crack of the bat. It's the sound of the mitt. It's just guys getting out there and running around and seeing your guys and, the new players that you signed in the offseason, being in the uniform, being in the jersey, getting a little bit of the, those first games in or hitting a home run. Like the whole Soto home run thing was fun and cool. And he's having a good spring. And then, of course, it really comes down to the questions that still need to be answered for a given team and, dealing with the injuries and how you can rebound and, do you have enough depth? Because we all know that these injuries happen relatively quickly once we get in the spring. Guys, one wrong move, they pulled their oblique, it's their hamstring, it's this, it's that. We've had plenty of scares with this team where we're not going to have guys to start, whether that's Sean Manaea or Frankie Montas. Questions about the pitching, which we'll get into. What's going to be going on at second base now that Jeff McNeil has that pulled oblique and he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. Doesn't seem like he's going to be out for long, but we still have to find out who's going to be playing second base for this team. It could be a platoon. That's a big conversation for today, which I did put a poll on the YouTube side asking the simple question of who is your starting second baseman for the New York Mets. And right now we have 25 votes in. If you haven't already, make sure you put in a vote. Who is your starting second baseman? Brett Baty or Luis Angel Acuna? It's close right now. Like I said, 25 votes. 56% right now have it at Acuna. 44% have it at Baty. We'll get into that conversation shortly, but if you haven't, make sure you put in your vote so we can get a full idea of what the chat is feeling.
Absolutely. Speaking of the chat, by the way, you see it on the bottom of the screen. Super chats now available, and a lot of people have been really generous with blessing us with super chats. But it's awesome, not just for us; it is also for you guys as the chat fills up to make sure a question gets answered, to make sure a point gets heard and read aloud. That is the best way to make that happen. I'm going to bring this up, maybe get it out of the way really quick. Odd Villain says spring training is over in Japan, and then says haters gonna hate, and I think that's a really good way to put it. I will say this, Ibby.
Yeah.
Baseball, we always criticize baseball for not promoting stars enough, for not really truly knowing how to grow the game. They look for love in all the wrong places is always the expression that I use. So if they're doing that and you're critical of them doing that, you can't then be critical of them promoting the hell out of Shohei Ohtani, who plays on the best team and the most marketable team in the sport, and going over to Japan and playing opening day. Like, you can't be mad at both things. And look, I don't care. I live in LA. I'm not a Dodger fan, obviously, but like, I didn't get up to watch these games because I don't care. But if it were the Mets and they were playing like they did in 2000, it was 2000, 2001, whatever, in the Tokyo series, I would be up watching these games at 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever. I don't care. I would get up and watch it. If you don't want to get up and watch it, guess what? Don't set an alarm and stay asleep. And I have a little bit of experience with this, and the people who watch and listen to this show know the last 3 years, I've spent a good chunk of October in Australia and New Zealand for work. And 2 of those 3 seasons with the Mets, they were in the playoffs, making, in one case last year, a deep run. And I was getting up at 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning to watch the game. I wasn't complaining about it. I was happy my team was in the playoffs. Opening day is not the playoffs, but you know what? Opening day is exciting. Hope springs eternal, blah, 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 blah. So you know what? If you want to watch it, go friggin' watch it. Who cares, man? And if you don't want to watch it, that's fine. Like, baseball's a regional game. If you have Shohei Ohtani overload, if you're a little tired of the way Shohei gets promoted because you're not a Dodgers fan, I get that, but you can't get mad because we talked so much about how, they never did anything to promote Mike Trout. Well, guess what? Shohei Ohtani is more of a household name. He's an international star, and he's easier to promote. So you can't get mad when they have a guy in their midst that is easy to promote, and they do it. You can't get mad about that.
We're literally, like, people are complaining about the season opening in Japan or whatever it may be in that sense. And we literally got to see those that chose to get up or even watch it on replay. You had an opportunity to have Shohei Ohtani, the biggest star in this league, for everything that he's able to do in Japan, opening up against Shota Imanaga. Like, first pitch of the, like, that is awesome. Baseball is international. Baseball is a melting pot. The best players in this game come from all over, and we as fans get to see something that cool happen. Like, that's awesome. That's great for the people of Japan. Like, it's so cool to see something like that actually happen. We always talk about moments in baseball, growing the game, seeing these things happen. Those are cool memories. Was I able to get up and watch it? No, I couldn't, because I really try to get as much sleep as I can because I don't get much of it. So all that being said, I was still able to see some of the highlights. And am I upset that kicked off the season? No, I don't care enough for it to complain about it. Like, that's like fake rage. Like, I don't need, no, you don't need to do that. Your team will have its opening day. You'll have your feelings about your team. You'll be happy that 1 minute, you'll be angry the next. The season kicks off, whatever it is, however you fan, go ahead and do it. But to be angry about it, it's nonsense. It was an awesome moment. It's a cool thing that's happening. And I love when this game is able to, spread out further, work better, work smarter in terms of promoting the stars that it has. Baseball is still a long ways away from being able to market players properly. But if there's one thing we know, and I know people in the chat are saying it, it's nauseating when it comes to Ohtani at times because they go so much. Like, you should focus on other players as well. But when you have a golden goose like that, you maximize it as much as you can. And that's what they're doing.
Absolutely. Jump back into the comments really quick. We do have a super chat. I'm going to use that as the segue off of this into the next conversation. So shout out to Hebrew Hammer. We'll get into that in 1 second. But to your point, Rosie says Verlander spends, talking about Ben Verlander, 95% of his show talking about Ohtani. It's really off-putting. To which Patty says, I'm going to mute Verlander this year. LOL at Rosie K. So look, if that's your feeling, again, I just want to be perfectly clear. That's fine. If you're like, listen, I'm tired of hearing about it, I get that. If you're like, I'm tired of this one guy who does his entire show and everything he tweets about, it's exhausting. Fine. But that's not to say, oh man, I can't believe they're bringing this guy back to Japan to face a Japanese star on the mound. Like, you can't be mad about that. It's the same situation with the World Baseball Classic. I don't really care personally about the World Baseball Classic, but I also don't like the Olympics. I'm not a soccer fan. I don't like the World Cup. So I don't have that kind of, national pride wrapped up in my sports teams the way some people do. That's me. I'm not going to say, though, that the World Baseball Classic doesn't matter. It clearly matters to people. It clearly matters to other countries. It clearly matters to players who are from those places that care and they want to win and represent with their country across their chest. I understand why it matters. So I can't sit here and say, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's dumb. You can't say that. Now, on the flip side, you can turn around and say, you know what? I don't like the timing of the World Baseball Classic because it creates a situation where guys might get injured. They start playing real baseball at a time when normally they don't play real baseball. Mm-hmm. I could see that as a fair critique, but to say I hate it, you're missing it, especially. And I don't want to turn this into this kind of show, but especially if you're an American, like, you've got Major League Baseball here. You've got the biggest league and the best stars want to come here. When guys come here from other countries and they become stars and they want to go represent their country on a worldwide stage, you can't get mad at that. So to me, it's all part and parcel of the same thing before we move on. I wanted to get that out of the way. I said to you we weren't going to talk about it, but Odd Villain kind of brought up a comment and ran with it. So I don't know if you have any more thoughts on it. If not, we can move on.
I got nothing else. I think you did a good job of articulating everything. We can move forward. That's fine.
Absolutely. And shout out to Douglas Barnes saying, the timing of the World Baseball Classic is my only issue. So anyway, let's move on in the conversation, start talking about our New York Mets in the here and now. And I teased it a little bit. Hebrew Hammer, thank you so much for the $20 super chat.
My man. Thank you, Hebrew.
We appreciate it so much, saying Acuna for president, LOL. But in all seriousness, I've been watching the Mets since 1979, and I'm telling you, this kid has superstar written all over him. I want him to play every day. I like Baty, but I also love Acuna's tools. So, Ibby, this is the perfect way to start the second base conversation. But just take this comment before we talk about the platoon, both guys making it. The one thing that I will say, I don't know if I'm as bullish as Hebrew Hammer is here with regards to saying Acuna has superstar written all over him, but I do think Acuna has tools, and it's probably because of his brother, and it's probably because of his father playing professional baseball for such a long time. He does carry himself like somebody who could be a superstar. And it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be one, but he has the look and the aura and the look, vibe of a superstar player. Now, the tools have to match it. The ability has to match it. Otherwise, it's just a really flashy ball player, which I don't have a problem with. But I do think that part of it is true. And I do think that part of it kind of colors the opinion. Sometimes you're like, this guy looks like a superstar. It's like, there's no doubt he looks like a superstar. He carries himself like a guy who is already great.
Yeah, and I think what Shay's comment in the he just put in there saying how that he at least has the it factor, and for all our wrestling fans out there, when you have the it factor, it helps you stand out. You have that charisma, it helps you stand out a little bit, which he definitely has in spades, more so than Baty does, that's for sure. But like, am I bullish on Luis Angel Acuna? I have my questions. I do. I think he can be a piece that definitely helps the team. Do I think he's going to be a superstar? I think a lot of feelings towards that also lean towards the last name on the back of his jersey, because of what you see with his brother, but he has flashed. And if you look at the numbers, which we'll dive into in a moment for the spring, I know spring numbers aren't everything, but it's not where it's, an automatic where I think the Mets are going to say we have to play him. If he was putting up stronger numbers, I think he would, it would drive the conversation in that direction. But because it's been an okay spring for him, nothing crazy, going out there and doing his job, and playing a solid, defensive second base, definitely think it helps him in comparison to what Baty is at second base. But I agree with everything you said, like the way he carries himself, the way he looks. And look, you can have the it factor, but like you said, you got to go out there and you have to do. Like, if you're going to get an extended look, and look, I'm not sitting here saying that I'm not going to go the route that others do, where they're like, this guy only played 14 games. Like, you can't go off of that. It's too small of a sample size and blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not going to go off of that. But I am going to say, like, I like what I saw during that stretch. I have to see more of it on a consistent basis. And the retort to that is, well, you got to let him play. And I get that. And I don't want to show my hand too much. I know people think that I'm somewhat of a Baty apologist on here, but I like having fun with it. But I think based off of, how things have gone to this point, we could be looking at a potential platoon, at least until Megill gets back. But I really think the Mets are going to ride the hot hand. And I think at the moment, it's the other guy and not Luis Angel Acuna.
Yeah, look, for those folks who tuned in to the solo show that I did last week, after the Megill injury news dropped, after the situation with Clay Holmes being named the opening day starter, that news dropped. This was, in the midst of, I think, one of Griffin Canning's two pretty good appearances at that point. That I spoke a lot on this. I have an issue from the standpoint of, I don't like Brett Baty. I don't think Brett Baty. Look, here's where my issue lies. I know today, right now, March 19th, 2025, a week away from opening day, 3:04 p.m. here on the West Coast, I know that Acuna can play second base. And I know he can play an elite level second base. He's already a great second baseman in terms of what he provides defensively. He also has a tremendous amount of speed, which you cannot teach, which you cannot coach, and that is just inherent in his ability. Now, I understand in order to harness the speed, he has to hit. But my point is this: if he hits a little bit with the ability to steal bases and with the ability to play elite defense, he's going to probably be, over the course of a season, even if he's not an offensive superstar, Ibby, around a 2-WAR player, if not bigger. And so I think when you start to look at what he could offer in terms of floor, that's what turns me away from Baty almost more than anything else. Baty is a very good athlete. Do I think that with time, Baty can become at least an average second baseman? I do, but I'm not interested in giving him time when there is a guy already on the roster, or in this case, in the periphery of the roster, who is a great second baseman. Now, people are going to look at some of the plays that Baty has made at second base, some of the sparkling plays, and they're going to say, look, he can handle it. He's smooth. He's athletic. He's showing off the range. But this goes back to what I said to you in our group chat that includes, Subway to Shea and Mets Weekly and Shea and Sons and a bunch of other folks. I want to see Baty turn a double play with 2 runners on and 1 out in the 7th inning of a 1-run game that bails out a pitcher.
Yeah.
That is the most important play, arguably, that a second baseman is going to have to make in a game. And I'm not sure that he could do that yet. That is hard for somebody who is a career corner infielder, even if they're athletic. That pivot, that turn, that release of the ball, knowing where the bag is, finding it on the run, turning, firing accurately to first base with authority, getting that out. I don't know that Baty could do that. And I don't know that I'm willing to sit through it for the other part of the conversation, which is Baty is no doubt a better offensive profiled player than Acuna. He has a higher offensive upside based on everything that we've seen through the minor leagues. However, he hasn't done it yet. So people talk about the potential of the bat, but I don't know if the potential of the bat is enough for me. You know what? Let me rephrase that. The potential of the bat is not enough for me to sacrifice the given of the defense. That's where my issue lies. If you told me that Acuna or Baty was already hitting like not prime Daniel Murphy when he was tearing the cover off the ball in the playoffs and then, became a power hitter with Washington. But if he was hitting like early career Daniel Murphy, where he was around a 300 guy, gap to gap power, and you're like, listen, man, you got to start this guy at second base because look what he's doing. Then I would say you're right, but he hasn't done it. And I know he's had the better spring and he deserves to make the team, but this is what he does. He hits in spring every year and then he doesn't hit in the major leagues. He hits in AAA every year and then he can't hit in the major leagues. So those two combination, that combination of two things is really what gets me to say, I want to see Acuna play because I know what he can do offensively. And I, for one, am just not sold on Baty's potential. It's all we hear about every year is Baty's potential.
So I'm looking at some things, obviously, when it was put out by Tim Britton, speaking on how, Luis Angel Acuna is poised to secure an opening day roster spot and may platoon at second base with Brett Baty for the Mets per team reports and boosted by, of course, Jeff McNeil's injury. So no matter what, like when you look at it and then, bringing up the numbers in general, shout out to CP from CPNY Sports on his True Mets Talk podcast. He was breaking down the numbers and I got him right in front of me. Thanks to him. So, Acuna this spring, like I said, nothing special, nothing crazy. Go out there doing his job, 265 batting average, 36 plate appearances, 15 games, 600 OPS, 306 OBP versus Baty's, which trumps him in almost every category. 308 batting average, 43 plate appearances, 15 games, 911 OPS, a 372 OBP. Look, the numbers for Baty are a lot better. And I know that spring is, but the lineup that went out today, I feel that this lineup is what we're looking at in terms of opening day. And at second, it's Brett Baty. And I think that they're going to give him this role. They want to see what he's able to do in a spot like this. And I do think that it could end up being a short leash. I do. And I'm very curious to see how he does with said short leash, because I think they're more comfortable with the idea of moving around the the utility ability, I should say, of Luis Angel Acuna, because I think he can help you in other areas. What they're going to do late defensively in games, whether it's at second base, whether it's going to be at third base, or whatever it is that they choose to move around, and how they end up going with the final roster for the first couple weeks of the season. But I really think that they're going to start this by saying, Brett, this is your shot. This is your shot to go do something. Prove to us you can do it, because if you can't, odds are this is it. And I've said that before on the show, like this is his last shot. And I think he knows that. I think he knows, at least it's his last shot here. Like, you have an opportunity to do something. We're giving it to you at another position. I think they're going to try it. I think they're going to say, look, we'll bite the bullet on the defense, at least early in games. I do think ultimately, though, it's going to be a legit platoon. I do. So I think righties, it's going to be Baty. Lefties, it's going to be Acuna. And I think late in games for Baty, he gets pulled and Acuna goes in. So Acuna's going to get his time. Okay. His positives are going to be seen for sure. But I really believe that they are going to say, here you go, Brett. And I know people don't want to hear it, but they're going to say, here you go, Brett. You had a hell of a spring. You earned this final shot. You've earned this chance. Go out and do. because now the lights are on. And I do believe, I think it was Hebrew who said it in the chat, saying how, once those bright lights go on, you know that the confidence of a player shines bright. And we've seen the confidence of Acuna. Now, this is your chance. Acuna's proven that he can do it under the lights, granted in a small sample size. Brett, this is your last chance. You failed every other opportunity. Now you had a crazy spring similar to the ones of the past. Things have broken in a way where you have, the right of way in this situation. You've done better than your counterpart, and McNeil is hurt. Can you do something to prove that you belong on this roster once Jeff does come back? Are you going to buy yourself DH time or second base time or third base time based off of how you hit? Because how you hit is the only way that's going to dictate that you are in this lineup. That's what, because it's not the defense. We know it's not the defense. It can be adequate, maybe, but you got to hit to be able to allow a David Stearns run team to sacrifice in multiple spots on the field.
Yeah.
Because it's tough to say you got Vientos at third. And I said this before, I said this weeks ago, to have Vientos at third, to have Baty at second, to have Pete at first, who's, gotten better, but he's still he's not an all-world beater at first.
No, Pete's good around the bag. He has good footwork, but he's not a good rangy first baseman.
You got Soto in right, who's trying to get better, but he obviously has his question marks. You got Nimmo in left. Who knows what's going on with the foot or the knee or all the issues he's been having. So there's a lot of question marks. So in order for this to work for Baty, you got to hit, man. And I'm telling you, I think the leash is short. We'll see what he does with it, but I am not going to be shocked if they pull it quickly if it proves to be failing within the first 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Hebrew Hammer, for the super chat here and segueing the conversation for us. I'm going to jump into some other comments here on this topic and then kind of give a little bit of my opinion towards, I think, what is the next genesis of this topic. First of all, Odd Villain says, Acuna crushes the eye test. I do agree with that. Zero Cool says, Acuna has the good face, I think, is what a lot of people say about, baseball prospects and stuff like that. It's like good body, good face, all that stuff.
Is this Moneyball now? The table at Moneyball?
Yes, it is the table at Moneyball. That's what we've turned this into.
He's got an ugly girlfriend. No confidence. Like that's what we're doing now.
Game for War saying, I'm a Baty fan, but he's still hitting weak grounders, meaning he's still aiming down on the ball. So he's got a bad hitting philosophy. I see too much of that still. I'm not a hitting coach. I'm not going to pretend to be one, but I still see a guy who hits the ball on the ground too much and doesn't pull the ball enough. Carson, we know how Carson feels. Shout out Mets Weekly about Brett Baty. He says the second baseman is typically a shorter shortstop with a less accurate arm and has tools. That's Acuna. By definition, he's right. Yes. Baty needs to hit to stay here, and that's the same McNeilish feel that I don't want to experience again. I think that's why when people jump on Carson and people jump on me for the Baty and McNeil hate, they're not similar players. They do have very different profiles, but I have fatigue of this left-handed hitter being given all these chances. Like, I'm just over it. Like, I want toolsier guys. McNeil is not a tools guy. Baty's not a tools guy. I want athletic guys out there. Like, so I think that's where, I don't want to live through this experience again when it comes to, give me another McNeilish feel. No, I'm good. I'm good as far as that's concerned. And I think the other thing for me is this one from Tom. Tom says, I wouldn't be surprised if Acuna starts in AAA and Walton gets the platoon role as Jeff's injury is short-term. Makes more sense for Acuna to play regularly than a bench role to develop. I talked about this, Ibby. I know you were in the chat. You couldn't be there when I did the live show on Friday. I just think if the Mets, and I know Walton is still in camp, they made a lot of cuts. The roster is almost completely sorted out, but he's still there, which means he still has a chance to make this team instead of Acuna. I just feel like if you're the Mets and Jeff McNeil gets hurt and you already had a sort of tough decision to make between who makes this team, Baty or Acuna, this takes that decision out of your hands. It's like if you're an NFL team and there's two quarterbacks and you're drafting one, it's like, oh man, you got to pick and you got to be right. Because if you're wrong, the GM's probably getting fired. But if you're picking two and you have no choice, you pick the other guy, you got to get out of jail free card.
Right.
So I think the Mets have been handed this sort of mulligan, pun fully intended with regards to Jeff McNeil. He gets hurt. And now all of a sudden you're like, well, we could just carry Acuna and Baty for a week, 2 weeks, whatever. And I know that Walton is not making a lot of money. And so it's a little bit apples to oranges here. But I just think if you're going to carry Donovan Walton, then you should have just signed Jose Iglesias. Because if you want the youth movement, you've been given the opportunity to showcase it right out of the gate, hassle-free. You could return it at any time. This is Amazon, free returns.
Yeah.
When Jeff McNeil comes back, if Acuna's not hitting and Baty is, you send Acuna down. When Jeff McNeil comes back, and he is going to come back relatively soon, and Baty's not hitting or Baty can't play defense, you send Baty down. And so it's easy. You get this easy do-over. Whereas if you wanted to go with the veteran presence, I don't think this is a bad comment from Tom, and he's not the only one who said it. A few people have said that's their fear. I just think Acuna has started lately, like you alluded to pick it up with the bat. He started off really slow. Baty has had a great spring offensively. Acuna's started to hit, and I just think he's too toolsy. He's let him just be here. And I also don't think that you're going to see a straight platoon in order for this to be effective. I think you're going to see more right-handed pitchers than left-handed pitchers. But I think that if you go just lefty-righty, then there's more of a case for you to send down Acuna and go with Walton. Let him be the short side of this uneven platoon. For me, I would give each of them an equal amount of starts. I would figure out a way to make it work where you're like, you know what? There's a righty on the mound, but we're not talking about prime Justin Verlander here. Acuna can handle this guy. I'm starting Acuna. If McNeil misses 10 games, I want each one of these guys to start 5 games, or at the very least, 60-40 split, something like that. So that's how I would do it. So I don't think this is a bad comment, but I just think, I don't know, man. I don't want to see some retread guy up here. I don't want to see Zach Short again. Give us the young, exciting players. You think Donovan Walton's going to be better than Acuna? Like, probably not. You're keeping a seat warm, like you did with Joey Wendell and Zach Short and all these guys. Like, to me, it's nonsense. I don't want to see those guys. I think Acuna and Baty both deserve to make the team, even if it's just for 2 weeks or less.
I agree with that, and based off of the report, like I just said before, that was put out a couple days ago, that both will probably make the team, and Acuna would make it. I did not know this thing that Flip brought up. Shout out to Master Flip, shout out to Queens Baseball. Acuna has 16 days of service time. They can gain an extra year of control by starting him in AAA and bringing him up in May. I wasn't aware of that. That obviously is something that is interesting, but based off of the report, I'm going to assume that he will make the team unless something unforeseen happens over the next week or so. I think he is going to make it, but interesting nonetheless, because I wasn't even aware of that, because, we think of his time here. We just thought, he was here, long enough to acquire certain times, service time, I mean. So knowing that it was such a short period, that does make things a little bit interesting, but because that report did come out, I lean towards him making this team. Also because, like I said before, he does have the utility type of profile to him that, God forbid something does happen within the first week or so, he can move around the diamond, whether that is at second base, center field, third base, so on and so forth.
This is a good point. I didn't know this either. Shout out to Master Flip for bringing it up. But with regards to this, Ibby, I think the Mets under Steve Cohen, less inclined, obviously, to manipulate service time than they would have been under the Wilpons.
I agree with that. You still want to be smart, but I get it. Yeah.
You want to be smart, but also,
yeah,
Acuna does not profile as a guy. I know we just talked glowingly about him in some cases. You have to worry about that more with the Pete Alonso types, guys who are going to come up and hit 30 and 40 home runs in their first couple of years. And they're going to, reset the bar in arbitration financially. Like, I don't know that Acuna is necessarily, like I said, he carries himself like a star. I'm still not sold that he's going to be a star. And so when you're talking about a guy whose assets are give him this great high floor of plays, a couple of positions on the field at a plus level, has great speed. And if he ever hits, you've got something there. I think that's a guy that I wouldn't be super concerned about manipulating service time for. That's just me. Just again, this is a great point from
Yes.
Master Flip. And it's definitely a factor, but to me, I wouldn't let that be the determining factor. And just shout out, Tom. Yeah, just to clarify, I'm not wishing for it with regards to Acuna being sent down. Just wouldn't surprise me. Didn't think you were wishing for it. I just don't see it. And Charlie brings it up here, Ibby. Walton's betting 194 in spring, playing mostly against minor leaguers. I'm not impressed. Like, eventually you have to reward guys. And a lot of the rhetoric around Acuna has been, and Carlos Ramos pointed this out earlier, saying how, he thought he got a little bored, Acuna, in AAA, and he wasn't doing great last year in AAA. And then when things mattered the most, he played at his best level all season for the Mets, filling in for Lindor in a pennant race. So if the knock on Acuna is then, I want to see him prove more by going back to AAA and quote unquote earning it. Well, Walton hasn't earned it. He's hitting 194. Acuna's hitting better than that. So I want to reward the young player. I don't want to give the journeyman the spot.
Yeah, I think the whole Walton thing was more driven from a couple of weeks ago, where you think an opportunity might present itself. This guy kind of sneaks on. If it was similar to that of the Zach Short experiment, like it happened last year, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that both do end up making the team. Like we said, great point by Flip, but I don't think it's something that's going to be a determining factor. And like I said, I think the ability of Acuna to move around definitely helps this team when it comes to flexibility, which is something they clearly like when it comes to having guys on the roster. And as we said that David Stearns has said before, just because we see certain things on opening day, remember, it's just one day. Things can change right after that game if they wanted to. So either way, I think both are going to be here. How they go about divvying up that time is going to be interesting. I see people in the chat saying that they want things to be, not so much a platoon. They want to see one guy get X amount of time. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then, move off them and go somewhere else. I get that thought process, but I really think that they're going to go the platoon route, and they're going to go righty lefty and, ride the hot hand in certain situations. And of course, when it comes to defensive purposes, you would see Acuna more often than not.
And this is another good one from Master Flip. I know we've been talking about the platoon. We're talking about righty, lefty. Mets more than likely facing Framber Valdez on opening day. Obviously a left-handed pitcher and a good one. So I think you're going to see Acuna in the lineup on opening day. I mean, look, Ibby, if you asked me, you know what? I'll ask you, regardless of what you think about any of these players. And again, I think you and I pretty much agree on Acuna. You like Baty a little bit more than I do. I know you do get labeled an apologist sometimes, but I know where it's coming from. I understand your sentiment on him. But take away all of your biases about any of these three players. Framber Valdez is on the mound. It's opening day. Who do you want facing him playing second base? Donovan Walden, Luis Angel Acuna, or Brett Baty?
I would say, as of the lefty on lefty and what I've seen at the major league level from Brett Baty, I would say that I would rather run out the better defender and the overall player in that sense from both sides of the ball. I would rather have Luis Angel Acuna at the bottom half of my lineup as the righty against Framber, as opposed to Baty, the lefty. Now, will they do that, or will they throw Baty out there and say, hey, can you hit lefties? I don't know. But if you're asking me, point blank, what would you do in this spot, knowing Framber's on the mound, the type of pitcher that he is, stuff that dies away from lefties and things of that nature, good changeup, great curveball second half of the year last year. I would say that you should probably start Acuna in that sense, because it slipped my mind that that Framber was starting opening day against the Mets. So that changes it a little bit. I think that more times than not, when you're facing a righty, you're probably going to see Baty in the early going. But in that moment, to answer your question, I think the proper start would be Acuna. I do.
Yeah, obviously, I'm going to agree with you there. The other thing I will say about people who are saying that they don't necessarily want to see a platoon, Game for War said it, but a few other people said it, give one of these players 2 weeks or a week or 10 days, whatever McNeil is out, let them sink or swim. The thing is, and I don't like Baty, Acuna and Baty on this roster right now, the way it is constituted, they actually complement each other very well. That's the other thing that I think is a huge negative for Donovan Walden. So while I do like Acuna and I want Acuna to get more of the reps, I do think that Baty does deserve to make this team and be a part of this platoon, because I think when it's all said and done, it makes more sense to carry both of these guys. And I touched on it a little bit on the Friday show. If you have a situation where this is a 1 or 2 run game late, 8th inning, where you're now willing to take out a bat, you could see a situation where Baty was maybe starting at second base. He moves to third. Vientos comes out and Acuna goes in to play second base. And now suddenly that situation that you mentioned before with regards to, having an infield that is Vientos and Baty at second learning a new position, and Pete, who doesn't have great range, and then you have got Soto in right field, and then you have a left fielder who might be on, a foot and a half in terms of his ankle not being 100%, and you're already, even though both the catchers, seem to be defensive first guys, but you're already down your number one catcher, you have a situation where you can fix, quote unquote, fix the infield defense for a late and close game. Now, I say that having said that Vientos, I think, is better than he gets credit for at third base. I think he's made himself into at least a serviceable third baseman. And I also think Baty's defense is a little overrated, but I do think Baty right now is a better defensive third baseman than Vientos. So, and I would rather have Baty play third and Acuna play second in a game that was late and close and mattered than have Donovan Walton anywhere on the field.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think that, like I said, I think a couple weeks ago the Walton talk was, I forgot who put it out. I don't know if it was DeComo or if it was Healy or Britton. Like, they mentioned the name, and I remember I mentioned
DeComo.
I remember bringing it up on the show. Like, I've never even heard of the guy. I was like, does this guy even, like, who is this guy? I've never even heard. And I love my team, but I was like, who the hell is this guy? And they started to push it like it was like a Zach Short type of situation. But like everyone's saying, like, he hasn't really, lit the world on fire when it comes to the spring, where it's like, you got to put this guy, he's earned his spot. It's like, no, it's just the guy, like nothing special. So I don't buy any of that. I think that was, that's 2-week-old news.
Fair. Odd Villain saying Walden needs to go back to the Teamsters or his plumbers union or some shit. He is whack.
Well, you know what? One thing I will bring up, because it's kind of, similar to what Odd's saying there, but shout out to Hayden Sanger. I know we talked about him last week on the show, and like a whole article came out about how this guy is like trying to, recognize a dream and being on a major league roster. And, he works at, I think it was Armand who sent it to me, saying how like he works at, I think, Whole Foods, like stocking shelves or whatever to make ends meet. And things like that. It's like seeing stuff like stuff like that warms my heart, because you can think about guys that play in the minors and they play their entire lives and they never even get that cup of coffee in the show. And then being able to see something like this, and he has an opportunity to be that guy, even though he's still doing these things to make ends meet. Like, things like that are really cool. So I'm not going to make fun of Sanger for being a guy that stocks shelves. Like, in that sense, that's a really cool story.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. As we put this Luis Angel Acuna, Brett Baty conversation to bed, we'll segue into our next, portion of the show. Remember, if you are watching live, the only way to get involved in the live chat is to be a subscriber to the show on YouTube. That's Till Mets Do Us Part is the channel. Subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on to make sure that you never, ever miss an episode and never miss an opportunity to take part in the live chat, which has become such an important part of this show. And I'll stress it again, sometimes you can't be here with us for the entire live show. You can always go back and watch whatever you missed, and you can always go back and listen to the show starting tomorrow morning on Spotify, Apple, and all those places where you get your podcasts. Till Mets Do Us Part, we're free everywhere. So shout out to all you folks who are keeping the conversation moving. Ibby, kind of take us out of this conversation with these couple of comments here from First Hebrew Hammer, who says the reason why they're going to go with Baty is because of his age, 25 years old, and it's time to shit or get off the pot, which is entirely true as far as his Mets career is concerned. And I also think, Ibby, they're in a situation, I think the days of the Mets getting a significant piece for Brett Baty, if they were to deal him, are probably done, just because he's not going to really have a huge opportunity to show it, barring some kind of injury and him stepping up and playing for an entire season here in 2025. But barring something unforeseen of that nature, the chances of them selling high on him are gone, getting a major piece. But they still do want to showcase him, because if he's not a part of their future, they don't want to give away a former first round pick, former top prospect in their organization who's 25 years old. So this shit or get off the pot comment has to do with not only his time with the Mets, but also the Mets are trying to show him. They're trying to show off a little bit of the versatility. Hey, look, he can play second base. You didn't think he could play second base, but he can. That's part of this. Do I think it's their driving force? I don't, but I do think it's something to keep in mind. Mr. Nobody jumps in saying, hello all. It's not a bad problem to have. We will see how it ends, but do I trust Baty to hit? No. I don't think it's a bad problem to have, Ibby. And again, this is why you don't bring back Jose Iglesias. This is why you don't entertain Donovan Walton. It only becomes a good problem to have, and we talked about this on the Friday show, when you're talking about young players. Having a logjam with guys who are making money, not a good problem to have. Having a logjam on your roster because Jeff McNeil makes almost $16 million and nobody wants to pay that contract, that's not good. Having Starling Marte be the weak side platoon of a DH making $20 million is not great when he has no power left. That's not great. But when you're talking about Baty and Acuna, or, oh my God, what do you do when Mauricio's ready? And now what do you do if Jet Williams has a great start to the season? That's a good problem to have. That's a great problem to have.
Yeah, and like you said, I think I'm seeing Douglas in the comments over here saying how, the Mets have a ton of middle infield talent coming through the system, which we've all been talking about for the longest time now, and he's going to do a good job in managing it well, and that includes giving Baty his last chance. Look, we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be very fascinating to watch. I really want to see if Baty can step up to the plate and deliver. And like I've said before, I've been very adamant about this being the last chance. Like, this is it, man. Like, and when something like that happens, that really is a true pressures on, lights are even brighter than they would be in New York. I mean, and they're bright in general. And we all know that the eyes will be on him every single time he steps into the box, because this is it, man. Like, we have other guys here. Mets fans are smart. They know that they are, well equipped, as Douglas said, at the position, throughout the system. And we all know the eyes are on you because we've seen you a lot and we've seen you fail a lot. And, Mets fans are, unapologetic and don't like watching guys constantly fail, because they're like, give me something new. I want something else. Okay. And to the points that were made before, Acuna, for as unfair as it sounds to someone like Baty or any other player, looks the part, has pedigree, has a last name, like all those things considered. It's like, you got to go out there and you have to do. So yes, it's going to be very interesting to watch the first couple weeks of the season to see exactly who can step up. And if player that does step up does so enough that it even affects Jeff McNeil.
Yeah, you froze a little bit there on the tail end, but even in a way that affects Jeff McNeil is kind of the point there. Ibby, I want to bring up this really quick before we head into the break. We got about a little less than 10 minutes to play with. Hebrew Hammer also saying, I would love nothing more to have both of them on the team, talking about Acuna and Baty, but then says, what about Canario? I want to see Canario on this team. Look, there's a reason why the Mets traded for him. There is a reason why he is still in big league camp. He is the insurance policy for Nimmo. He's the insurance policy for Marte. And while it seems like we dodged a bullet here with regards to, Jesse Winker kind of cramping up and stepping awkwardly on the plate, he's the insurance policy for Jesse Winker. So I don't think Canario is going to make this team, because it seems like, at least today on March 19th, a little over a week away from opening day, that Nimmo, Marte, and Winker are all going to make this team. And I think you need one of those guys to start the year on the IL for Canario, who is an intriguing player, to make the team. Now, I do hope that they're able to pass him through waivers and keep him in AAA, but I don't know if that's going to happen, because, you would like to see the Mets stash a guy who's 24 years old and has some pop. But I don't think there's an avenue for him to make this team unless somebody winds up on the IL here in the last week.
I agree with that. And I had mentioned last week that or 2 weeks ago, I can't remember now, where we were talking about Marte. And I was saying how at the time, I felt like Marte was going to start the season on the IL because it seemed like, nothing was trending in the right direction. Guy can't feel his legs, his knees, his feet, like all these things that are hurting the guy. It's like, what's he going to be able to do? So I thought that really opened the door for Canario in that sense to make the roster. But at the moment, unless something changes, like I said in the last week here, I feel like he's going to get passed over. He won't make it. And then, like John said, hopefully he can pass through and make his way back. But I'm not sure because of the profile that he has as a hitter. I could see other teams trying to hop in to put him into their system.
Yeah, and look, in a way, it's a shame. Look,
it is.
I know Starling Marte has had a really good career. I know Starling Marte has also had some crazy stuff happen in his life. Seems like a really good dude, easy guy to root for. I know he's close with Juan Soto, so that's a factor. I also know he only has 1 year left on his deal, and it also might be the last year Starling Marte plays Major League Baseball. Let's be honest, the way that his body has sort of betrayed him here over the last couple seasons. But, and I will acknowledge this from Ken, Marte is still a good hitter, but he also leaves a lot to be desired with regards to if he's your DH. It seems like the issues with Marte's legs have affected him in strange ways. Marte is still a good base runner. Marte was a very high percentage stolen base guy last year. When he did pick his spots, he was still very successful. But it's weird to see that the leg issues have affected him defensively, not on the bases. I think part of that is because when you're running the bases, you know where you're running, you know when you're going to run, you know how to run. When you're in the outfield, it's the quick moves, it's the turning on balls, it's all the quick twitch stuff. And I think that that's probably a little bit as to why it's affected him there. But it hasn't made him a bad hitter, Ibby, but it has sapped what marginal power Marte has had. And so it's not to say that he's bad or anything, like he's useless, but he's just diminished in so many ways. And the reason why I bring this up is because if I'm the Mets and I'm already rostering Jeff McNeil at $16 million, it would be great if you could take a flyer to start the season on a 24-year-old like Canario and you didn't have to be saddled with Marte. But that's not the world we live in, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, it's the truth, and it sucks because you might lose. I'm not saying he's going to be a star, but you might lose a potential, difference maker, guy that can help the team, younger player, solid profile as a hitter, all because of if you want to call it mistakes of yesteryear of another management, another front office, or if you want to just say it's the unfortunate nature of the game where the body quits on a given player. Either way, sucks. But I do think that he's going to be a casualty of this roster once it gets finalized because of the health that is still, at least today on, March 19th, the health that is still, enough, if you will, for the outfield. I think he is going to be the odd man looking in or looking out, wherever it is.
It sucks because unlike what the Mets have in their bullpen, where they have a couple guys who are out of options and a couple guys who have options, who might be better pitchers, to be honest, but you can play that option game a little while and you can prolong your looks on some of these players. Mm-hmm. When guys are out of options, it sucks that a guy like Canario, and again, not saying that he's going to be a star, but it sucks that a 24-year-old might have to leave your organization in favor of a guy who's not only over 10 years older than him, but is also oft injured. Because Ibby, I could see a situation where the Mets obviously are carrying Marte. He plays for 2 games. They lose Canario because he doesn't pass through waivers. And then Marte gets hurt. And then they don't have Canario to go back to. And I think while not making a big deal out of this guy that none of us even heard of a couple weeks before the Mets got him, like, it's just like, that's a bummer for depth. That is a bummer.
Agreed.
When you put it that way, when you put it into that perspective, it's a bit of a bummer.
Especially the outfield depth in general for this team. Like when we're talking about whether it's age, whether it's health, or the outfield depth, that's really lacking down low because this team doesn't have that much in terms of the outfield when it comes to players coming through the system at the moment, at least. Carson Benj isn't ready yet. Drew Gilbert can't get healthy. And, having someone being brought in like Canario is to try and help with said depth. But you could lose a guy like that because of, like I said, having to roster a more expensive older player because, you had no chance to move him, and then the injuries didn't really help in the matter. So now you have to basically go back to where you were, which is back to square one when it comes to the overall depth and youth of the outfield position because you can't hold the guy. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully he can pass through waivers and he can come back. But like I said, I don't know if I have the most confidence when it comes to that.
I think that is the best. The best case scenario is to hope that he passes through waivers. Ibby, before we go into the break, we are at an hour. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, so I want to force us to get through it now. Yeah. The positional battle for backup catcher looks like it's going to come down to Hayden Sanger, who's been with this organization for a long time that you mentioned already. And the other guy is Jackson Reitz, I believe is his name.
Correct.
Who hit a grand slam. I think the day Alvarez got hurt, he hit a grand slam. He's doing a little bit with the bat. I think he's a guy that Stearns had for a brief time in Milwaukee, but I think it's Hayden Sanger's time. I think you just reward the guy who's been catching these guys for a long time, and he's a plus defender in every sense of the word. So, Reitz is a decent story, but I don't think it's enough to, move anybody. I don't think it's enough to move Sanger out of a spot that I think he's earned. And I also don't see a reunion with Tomas Nido. I don't think it's worth it. I think you just roll with it and see what you have in Hayden Sanger.
I think, like you said, the feel-good story, and it's not charity. It's just guy's been here for 7 years. He's been working his ass off in the minors for that amount of time, solid defensively. And I think that's what you want. You want a guy that can just be there in the, the off chance that something happens to Luis Torrens. You're focusing right now on the defensive aspect of the catcher position. You're hopeful for the offense to return once Francisco Alvarez is healthy and back. Right now, you're doing your best to manage the staff, play defense, be strong behind the plate, have a strong arm. And I think having a Torrens and Sanger combo is the best case scenario. It's the best. It's the best action that this team can make at the moment. And like you said, there's zero reason to go outside the organization for this based off of the timeline of Alvarez and based off of what both of these guys can give you in comparison to what others outside can give you. No reason in spending money or wasting another spot on someone when you have a player of the same ilk within the organization. Give Sanger the shot and give me Senga throwing to Sanger. And I could be
yes. I would like to see that as well. Look, just to bring up Tomas Nido for one more second, then we'll head into the break. I'm not going to throw a riot if they send $100,000 to Detroit to acquire Tomas Nido to have him be the guy. I just think we already know what Tomas Nido is. And I think, like I said on the Friday show, Hayden Sanger's a guy who can be, he's got plenty of options. Of course, he can be your third string catcher for the next several years. He's a defensive first guy, and it just makes a lot of sense to have a defensive first guy be your third string catcher. And I think you can have that guy. Most teams don't carry three catchers, of course, three true catchers, but he can be a guy with the options that he has. You send him down, you bring him up. If there's an injury, if there's ineffectiveness, things like that, you can move some things around. You bring Tomas Nido back. It's kind of like a poor man's version of bringing back Jose Iglesias. Nido has never had the impact on a Mets team that Jose Iglesias had on the 2024 Mets. So don't misconstrue what I'm saying there. It's just like you're bringing a guy in who you know what he's going to do. Does he know the pitchers? Sure. But Sanger knows the pitchers. Is he a good defender? Sure. But Sanger's a good defender. He's just the guy. And I wouldn't go that route. Again, I'm not going to have a riot if they did, but I just think it's Sanger's time. And I think this is a good one from Shea, who just says, I think it's best to go with a plus defender as the backup catcher.
Agreed.
Trust the other offense in Alvarez's absence. And again, Luis Torrens, nobody's going to confuse him with prime Mike Piazza, but Torrens has got pop. And Torrens goes on stretches where he's offensively very, very, very good. And you know what, if he starts the season on one of those runs, fine, take it. Yeah. And he'll catch most of the games, and Sanger will just be the guy who pops in for him and helps out a little bit because he can't catch 3 days in a row or a day game after a night game or something like that. But there is nothing here about his career that tells you that Luis Torrens can't get hot to start the season and actually give you what you hoped Alvarez would give you in a small sample size? Because he's done it in the past.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like you said, I agree with the whole sentiment of allow the rest of this offense to carry the weight. Having an offensive guy, a catcher, a power bat, a catcher is nice. It's not something a lot of teams get to have. So in the event that this happens, you go defense. Both guys are plus defenders. Hopefully Torrens can hold it down. If he can't, you got the defensive guy behind him, which I think should be Sanger. So yeah, we'll let it play out as is. And like I said before, reward Sanger. It's a feel-good story, but at the same time, it also makes sense.
We spent over an hour talking about really the only two offensive position or lineup positions left on this roster, as we're only a week away, just over a week from opening day. When we come back from the break, we are going to talk about the pitching side of it, where there's a little bit more intrigue. Some stuff is becoming clearer. Obviously, Clay Holmes gets announced as the opening day starter. Seems like Megill and Canning are going to be the ones, at least to start the season, in the rotation. But like I alluded to before, there are some questions and some chess pieces that the Mets can move around, especially in the bullpen. So don't go anywhere. If you're watching live for the first time, you're like, this is great, but I don't want to sit through a break. Don't worry. It is just a quick 30-second ad spot and a little reset that we use here on the live show. So it's John Saponaro. It's Matt Ibanez. It's Till Mets Do His Part. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Twitter, and we will be right back. Yo, just like that, we are back with Till Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, like we are each and every single week on Wednesdays at 5:30-ish is when we start. Who knows? Whatever. Anyway, we're an hour into the conversation right now. John Saponaro, Matt Ibanez, plus all of you in the live chat. Your questions, your comments, your concerns, super chats are open. If you want to make sure that your question, your comment, your joke, your heckle, whatever it is, gets heard, gets read, gets brought up on the screen, you know what to do as far as those super chats are concerned. If you missed any of the show, this has evolved into a 2-hour show every week. Started off as 45 minutes, then went to an hour, then an hour and a half, now 2 hours. In the next couple of years, this will be a 10-hour marathon show, I'm sure, where Ibby and I don't sleep and we just get chained to our podcast studios and we're not allowed to leave. But for right now, this is a 2-hour show. We understand that not everybody can devote 2 hours in the live stream. We appreciate all of you who do and continue to do that each and every single week. But if you missed anything, you can watch this broadcast in its entirety as soon as we're done with the live stream on that same YouTube channel, which is called Till Mets Do Us Part. You can also follow us on social media across all platforms. That's Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, and TikTok at Till Mets Do Us Part. And if you can't do any of that and you just want to listen to the show, keep it old school, put it on in your headphones while you're at the gym or whatever, listen to it while you're stuck in traffic, you can do that too starting tomorrow morning. This show will be available wherever it is you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, all of those places. And as always, Till Mets Do Us Part is free and available on all those platforms. Super chats will fund Ibby's Wi-Fi. However, Ibby, before we get back into the conversation, let's get a quick word in from our friends over at Independent Safes.
Absolutely, John. IndependentSafes.com. Independent Safes are protecting homes and businesses with secure residential and commercial safes. Fireproof peace of mind in every corner. Visit IndependentSafes.com today for security that stands strong. And I'm curious to listen to that back on this brand new microphone. Hopefully it sounds even better than it has in the past. I'm not that angry this week when it comes to, someone that I want to put into the safe. I guess, I could say, people that are a little, dumb when it comes to opinions, when it comes to the World Baseball Classic, like we talked about before a little bit. Maybe we can do that. But other than that, I don't really have anything in terms of, putting someone in there, throwing it into the, you know what? I'll do this.
Oh, hold on. You just muted yourself somehow. Yeah, if you tap that little, nope, you got to tap the green spot on the mic right there. Yeah, where the light is. There you go. Tap it till it's green. Give it a try.
You got me now?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm learning things as we go. I didn't mean to touch it, but now I know that these things can happen. What I will do is I will put the rest of spring training into the independent safe. Lock it, throw it into the river, because honestly, guys, I'm done with spring training. I am ready for opening day. I'm ready for the regular season. I want to get these guys back up north, wrapped in bubble wrap, making sure that nobody gets hurt and everyone's okay and we're ready to go for the start of the season. So if I'm going to put anyone in the safe this week, I think I could take spring training as a whole. Might have to get the panic room, spend 25 grand on it, whatever it is. Okay. But other than that, independent safes, tell them Till Met sent you. They'll take care of you.
It's funny, Ibby. Kent Dahl saying, Ibby, a tech genius. But it's sort of, you didn't know this, it's sort of a rite of passage on this show, or for the hosts of this show with this mic, to make that mistake. Because when I first got this mic, and for those of you, I know this is not engaging conversation, I promise to be brief. There is no button. It is just the area that lights up green. If you touch anywhere on there, it's touch activated, it will mute. And if you touch it again, it will unmute. And I didn't know that either. And I grabbed the mic and I went to adjust it, as I do often throughout the show. And I put my finger on it and I also muted the mic. Now, Ibby didn't know this because it was on a Jets live stream for another person. So it had nothing to do with the show. But the first time I used this mic, and it's the first time Ibby's using it right now, I also made that same mistake. So funny joke from Ken, but you know what? It happens. There are some suggestions, though, for the independent safe. I just want to bring up Stevie Mack. Says he wants to put MLB The Show 25 in the independent safe because he still has not pulled Soto or Lindor yet. I believe he is probably talking about their cards in like Diamond Dynasty or something like that. I don't play Diamond Dynasty on MLB The Show, but I think that is what he's referring to. And then we have Odd Villain, who just says, put a certain Rockaway-based blogger in the independent safe. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Game for War says, you got the same mic. Do you wear the same underwear too?
I mean, if John's wearing his Manscaped one say that we got from Manscaped, maybe we are Game for War. Maybe we are in this sense.
I'm happy you were picking up what I was putting down. So Ibby, let's jump back into the conversation. I teased that we're going to talk about the pitching. We spent a lot of time talking about the position player group, over an hour. Well, let's talk about the pitching staff. First, I want to bring this up. Brad says, sign me up for the 10-hour marathon. You know what? Then you'll want to join us when we do our trade deadline show.
That one goes forever.
From Mets Weekly. Usually it's Mets Weekly.
When we hop on Mets Weekly in general, it goes nearly 3 hours. So
yeah, every time me and Ibby do a Mets Weekly, shout out to all those guys, Frank and
Andrew and Carson. Yeah,
every time we jump on with them, man, it is the longest show we have ever done. I have to like stop in the middle of it and go get like an extra water. I'm like completely like my throat is killing me. Like I'm talking so much, such a long show, but it's a lot of fun. That's why we keep doing it. So let's talk about the rotation. Let's talk about the pitching. We'll start in the rotation place, and we'll bring this one up from Odd Villain that just says, pitching lab, greater than everything. Rosie said earlier, it's weird because the national media has trashed the rotation, which has made me feel like I want to defend it.
And you should, Rosie.
And you should. And Shay saying, by the way, update, Sean Manaea throwing from 90 feet now, progressing quickly through the throwing progressions, which is important for his timetable of getting back here sooner rather than later. So, Ibby, I'm going to bring back this one from Rosie K. Why should Rosie defend the rotation? I agree, but in your words, why?
I mean, I honestly feel that everything that this team has been questioned for this entire spring or the entire offseason, when people are, picking and making fun of said players, whether that's national media, talking heads on television, or even the fan base in general, you want results, right? Ultimately, that's what you want. You want guys to do well. You want guys to succeed. And for the most part, that's what this pitching has done this entire spring training. Like, they've gone out there and they've performed to the point where, you can make fun of the name Griffin Canning all you want when they sign him. You can make fun of Tyler Megill because of what he's been consistently. And I understand that one a little bit more. You can make fun of Paul Blackburn all you want, but these guys are going out there and they're putting up numbers. Clay Holmes, also reliever, back to starter, putting up numbers. Something is going on. Something is in the water. And usually when there's something in the water in Port St. Lucie, we want the Mets to stay away from it because they're always getting hurt. But something's in the pitching lab's water because these guys are performing. Now, are these things going to carry to the regular season? Like we said before, we want results to show up when it matters. Do results matter as much in terms of like ERA and runs scored, like all this nonsense during spring training? No, it doesn't really matter. But the under the hood stuff, capitalizing and using data to your advantage and seeing what they've done to this point. I don't understand why anyone would feel discouraged about what this team can do in the short term, at least until the likes of Sean Manaea and even a Frankie Montas comes back. Like, I don't understand why you would feel worried, because if this is going to be something moving forward, and I hate when people, cheer for Manaea and Severino, but then question things the next year when it just comes to a different name. It's not the name that you're used to. You're like, oh, you're upset, but now you get something new. So let's do it again. Like, everyone wants to laud and applaud the teams like Cleveland, San Francisco, Seattle, all these other places, the Rays, that churn pitching. Dodgers, whatever it may be. They churn pitching. And now the Mets are doing, and you're like, yeah, but there's no names. Like, this isn't good enough. It's like, well, it's a start, and it's starting to show out a lot more. So when I see the numbers of Griffin Canning, like John said it during the solo show when he was talking about it, and he's put out shorts as well. Like, there's nothing where I need to think that he's going to save my season, but there's a damn good chance that he can be someone solid on the back end, which is all I need. I don't need you to be a superstar. No one's ever asked him to be a superstar, and fans shouldn't expect him to be one, even amongst the injuries. All you have to do is go out there and be an adequate pitcher. Last year, he wasn't even that. I should say, last year he was that, but it was ugly because things went south in Anaheim. Like, can things get better for him? A little bit better? I believe it can. And he's shown by changing approach, by mixing up pitches, focusing more on certain pitches as opposed to others, maximizing what you are great at, lessening or eliminating the things that hurt you. This is how you find success. If you can go out there and give 5 innings, that's a huge win for this team. If Tyler Megill can find it, which again is a big if, but he has all the stuff in the world. And we all know Carson likes to call him if man. Like, if he can do that. Look, I have my reservations about Tyler. I hope he proves me wrong. Okay. Paul Blackburn, another one. Is he anything special? No, he's not. Does he strike guys out? Not really. But if he can go out and, again, provide some innings and not get blown away and give up, 10 runs in a start, you're doing your job. So right now, I think that the pitching lab is trending in the right direction, and fans of this team should feel confident that they have the right people in place to get the most and maximize from the guys that we have here right now.
Yeah. And look, you said a lot of what I said in the short, what I said in the solo show, and I'm going to use Griffin Canning as the focal point here because it's not sexy, and that's by definition. When you go out and you get Clay Holmes and, Mets fans, even myself, were like, he's going to be at the back end of the bullpen. That's what he does. Yeah, sure. They're going to try this starter thing. It's, I'll believe it when I see it. But now you see the returns. You see the work ethic. You see, everything he did to position himself, not only this offseason, but what he's been doing, even with the Yankees, that he kind of never gave up preparing as a starter because that was just a part of his routine. And then you see, this is a guy with 2 elite pitches before he got here. This is a guy who's finding 18 inches of induced vertical break on his fastball. This is a guy who now, thanks to the pitching lab, has not only found that, but has developed a kick change. When you start to talk about that, this is a guy with plus stuff. that can be sexy. This could be something, people talked about it on the solo show. People have commented on the short. People have been saying it for weeks that they think Clay Holmes can be the best starting pitcher for the Mets this season. And that's in a rotation that features a healthy Kodai Senga, who got Rookie of the Year, finished second in Rookie of the Year 2 years ago, and 7th for the Cy Young. So that's the sexy one. That's why I want to focus on Griffin Canning, because going back to when the signing happened, Ibby, people got angry. We talked about it on this show. You and I said to people, it's not something to get excited about, but that also means it's not a signing to get mad about, because it's a depth signing. And nothing that has happened over the last couple weeks changes that. However, what you're seeing is the importance of a depth signing unfold before your very eyes. This is a guy who went from the worst run organization, arguably, in baseball, certainly the worst run organization with regards to identifying, drafting, and developing pitching, to one that is quickly becoming acknowledged for having one of the better pitching labs in the sport. And you nailed it. All the pitching lab does, in layman's terms, is try to maximize what a guy does good, minimize what a guy does poorly, and sometimes omit what a guy does poorly entirely, to the tune of, you throw a cutter, guess what? You don't throw a cutter anymore, because you throw that cutter for some reason 60% of the time. No one ever told you not to throw it 60% of the time, because guess what? It gets hit to a 340 batting average. And I'm not sure if you know, but that's not good. Or it's got a 540 slug on it. Like, not good numbers. You're not throwing a cutter anymore. We're going to reshape it. Now you throw a slider, and you're going to throw it sparingly. And all of a sudden it unlocks something in a guy. Now, the reason why I bring up Holmes and I bring up Canning is because, again, Holmes is a guy that you can look at, and you could, at the end of the season, we might go, God damn, what did we find in Clay Holmes? I don't think you're going to see that with Canning. I don't think he's going to be an ace. I don't think he's going to be the next coming of Jacob deGrom. I don't think he's not even going to be this year's version of Luis Severino, because with respect to Severino was a great starting pitcher for a time with the Yankees. It derailed at the end, but there was a time where he was objectively great, and the stuff is through the roof, or was through the roof at that time. But with Canning, you can set the bar lower, and then you start to see how this makes sense. If you just say, Griffin Canning, give me 150 innings at a 4.50 ERA, some of you are going to say, well, who cares about all that? But a 4.50 ERA spread over 150 innings, something he can definitely do. 2 years ago, pitched to a 4.7 ERA. Last year, with a terrible ERA, he was getting lit up all over the ballpark. He gave the Angels 170 plus innings. So you know that he can do both. Now, all of a sudden, you realize this guy was making just over $4 million. Everybody complained we gave Frankie Montas $17 million a year to be our fifth starter. That's what fifth starters make. 15 million, 16 million, 17 million. And that number is going to continue to go up. Griffin Canning's getting paid like a bad middle relief pitcher. If he could ever be a 4.50 ERA starting pitcher over 150 to 170 innings at $4 million, the value that you are getting for that is astronomical. And when you're a team that's paying Pete Alonso $30 million, you're paying Lindor $34 million, you're paying Juan Soto $50 million. You're also paying $16 million to Jeff McNeil and $20 million to Starling Marte to barely be good. You got to find some ways to get some value for less money and find those diamonds in the rough. And so I think Griffin Canning is not the key to the Mets season, but maybe I think he can be a key to the Mets starting rotation over the course of 162. Could do a lot worse than what this guy is showing you right now.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And, I know I just said before that numbers aren't everything when it comes to Canning, but just like I said, I look at more things, the command of the mound, the confidence out there, and, seeing him go out there for 10 innings pitched, 6 hits, a .90 ERA, 16 strikeouts to 2 walks. Is that what he's going to do in the regular season? Probably not. Not when he's facing better lineups. Not when he's going up against the likes of the Phillies and the Braves or the Dodgers or the Padres. Like, look, he's going to have his rough outings, I'm sure. But all in all, I like what this pitching lab has been focusing on for him when it comes to maximizing and eliminating. Like the example I always give, and shout out to Shay in the chat, because whenever he's here, I always have to find a way to drop a Sonny Gray line, if I will, because everyone thinks that Sonny Gray was a terrible pitcher in New York, and for all intents and purposes, he did fail when he was with the Yankees, but he succeeded every single place that he's been in. And the reason, in my opinion, why he failed as a Yankee, because in their pitching lab, they were forcing him to use a pitch as a strikeout pitch when he was telling them, guys, this isn't going to work as a strikeout pitch. Like, stop making me throw this. It's not going to work. And they didn't move off of their philosophy, and he got torched as a pitcher, even though when every other place that he's gone and done things the way that it's supposed to be done for his repertoire, he's succeeded. So it's about doing the right thing and realizing when you're doing a right thing versus doing a wrong thing. So I love what I'm seeing from Canning. I love what I'm seeing from this back end. When it comes to the overall rotation about what's going to happen here, I think we're looking at Canning is in, and I think Megill is in. I think Blackburn is the outside looking in. I think he's a potential bullpen guy. I think that those two are going to be a part of the rotation as they join Clay Holmes, Kodai Senga, and David Peterson. And they're going to go 5-man for now.
Yes, I do think they will definitely go 5-man to start the season. There's a couple really good comments in here, Ibby, with regards to Griffin Canning. And shout out to the people who are delivering them. Shay said this as I was saying it, so I want to give him credit where credit is due. Calling Canning a change of scenery. He needed one badly. I think that's as much mental as it is tangible. Again, alluding to the fact that the Angels, they have whatever the opposite of a pitching lab is what the Angels do. I don't know if they like just blindfold themselves and then spin around 3 times and then throw darts at the wall, but whatever they're doing, it is not scientific. It does not work. And it's a real problem with regards to trying to get the best out of pitchers. These next 3 really show you the value in a guy like Griffin Canning. Carson says Canning's 50th percentile is like a 4.25 ERA arm, getting paid less than Adrian Hauser in arbitration 3, kind of showing you a little bit about the value there. Armand with some stats saying Canning's best ERA was 2020. It was 3.99. If he ever does a 3.99, my God, you dance on the fucking
I'll do a
streets.
backflip.
His rookie ERA was 4.78, and in 2023 it was 4.32. He gives you anything between 4.78 and 4.32, it's a win. Just saying. And then Zero Cool with another, sort of like what Carson alluded to, just from a different perspective. If one WAR is equal to around $6 million, then Canning has to give you a 0.7 WAR to justify his salary. Ibby, when you start to put it in perspective like that, you really see the value you can get from a guy who, again, not exciting, but yeah, I think you probably get at least a 0.7 WAR. That means he's being paid appropriately. Can he give you what his 50th percentile is, which is a 4.25 arm? Probably.
I think so, yeah.
Can he give you somewhere between his rookie year ERA and his ERA from 2 years ago, 4.32 and 4.78? Probably. So when you start to look at these things, you start to see like, man, they might actually know what they're doing. And that brings me back to what Carson said a little bit earlier, which is everyone hates our rotation, which means Stearns is a genius. Remember those words. I think that's important. I think there's something to be said. Carson expressing it in Carson's way, but I think there's something to be said about an odd villain. We might have to put this on a shirt. Arms greater than names.
It's always focusing on, like, never. I hate when people focus on the back of the jersey. Don't focus on that. Focus on the talent and the things that could be brought out from it, from what this system is starting to become. Stop worrying about these names and what's categorized as an ace and things of that nature. Let these guys go out there and do. And we watched it. Like the frustrating thing for me is why fans automatically, jumped ship and changed their tune when you just watched it happen a year prior. And the problem that people think it's a gimmick. Like once, you can't do that again. You got to sign Corbin Burns. You got to go out and do this. You got to do that. You got to get one of those guys. And it's like, it's not a gimmick. It's part of the game now. And I think it was it said it how yes, it was Rosie saying here how the Mets pitching lab as next level, and he did a whole talk Mets and the Yankees, and when it comes to what is good from both sides and how they treat each other when it comes to how they treat their players in terms of the health and things of that nature. So here about the lab, other comment that mentioned he is a person that got paid because of said lab. And that's the truth. He was the worst pitcher in baseball coming here. And, now he leaves, makes $67 million to go pitch in Sacramento. And, now we're all of a sudden we're worried about what this lab can do for the guys that are here. Sit back and enjoy the ride, because I really feel, and this isn't just being biased, this isn't blind optimism either, I really feel that the right people are in place here to get the most out of these pitchers. They're going to do enough to the point where it doesn't burn out the bullpen, which is the most important thing, because the bullpen this year should be a strength.
Odd villain, though, raining on your parade. Ibby, feed the hamsters, son.
I know.
You were a little sluggish. You never cut out. I think people got the message, and it was a good message. And then Charlie, Ibby's having Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi issues.
Wi-Fi. I'm whiffing on my Wi-Fi. I know, guys. I know. I suck. I know.
No, that's all good. This one from Douglas is another thing with regards to the pitching lab. Said that he was listening to a fantasy baseball podcast, and Griffin Canning was a sleeper they were talking about, and they even praised the Mets pitching lab. So this is something, when a guy like Severino, who had a lot of success before he got here, then had it flame out, then came here, then rebuilt his value to, like Ibby said, going out, getting paid, becoming the A's opening day starter, all this stuff. This is things that other teams used to do. This is teams that this is the kind of thing that the Rays are known for. Oh, the Rays, they go out, they execute, they turn these guys into, guys that can go get paid elsewhere. And, sometimes their success in Tampa carries on, sometimes it doesn't, but the Rays are just so good at it. Well, this is what the Mets are trying to do. You have this good one here from Charlie saying the Mets spring training ERA, which you take with a grain of salt because it doesn't matter. Plus, It's also ERA. It's not the be-all, end-all. But it's important to say that it is the best in baseball, significantly better than the second-place team. 329 versus the Giants at 366, the Braves at 380, etc. Ibby, again, I know the stats don't matter. The numbers don't matter. What's under the hood matters. But and in this case, I would say what's under the hood is Sean Manaea has not pitched in spring training. Frankie Montas has not pitched in spring training. Who's pitching in spring training? Griffin Canning. Who's pitching in spring training? Tyler Megill. Who's pitching in spring training? The new and improved Clay Holmes, ace of the Mets staff currently. The revelation that we found in Max Kranick. So the under the hood stuff has to do with, in this case, the fact that some of the guys you expected to be there aren't even there. Guys that you expected to be contributors aren't even being contributors. It's these other people. So that's another way I would look at it and say, yeah, okay, it's spring training ERA, a watered down stat to begin with, plus it's spring training. It's not super important. But look at the guys who are giving it to you. It's not just like, oh, yeah, this is, prime Jacob deGrom. He's just going out there. He's tuning up. And, man, he's facing the Washington Nationals, never will be team every other day, and he is blowing through them, and there's nothing you can make of it because we already know deGrom's great. No, people were saying Tyler Megill's done. He's a head case. It's never going to work out. People were saying Griffin Canning's the worst pitcher in baseball. Why did they sign him? And they're going out there and they're giving you something positive. So you can't look at it. Again, we talked about it with regards to some other stuff at the top of the show. You can't have it both ways. You can't say it doesn't matter and then be like, well, I didn't expect them to be good anyway. But they're being good. So now what do you do? Joe DeMayo, shout out to Joe DeMayo saying, Canning
what up, Joe?
God. Joe DeMayo over at the Mets pod. Also a big part. He was on the call.
He was
doing what he does best,
which is breakout talking game
about Mets prospects at the spring breakout game. Was on SNY. over the weekend, Sunday, right? Yes.
Over
the
weekend.
weekend.
That was awesome. Good stuff.
Shout out to Joe. Good stuff. I didn't watch the whole thing because I had a lot to do on Sunday, but I did see a little bit of it. Shout out to Joe. Also, I was listening to the Mets pod, and he said that he was calling that game on his birthday. So what a great birthday gift for Joe DeMeo. Happy birthday. Happy belated, Joe.
Happy belated,
you did a great job in what I saw. This is just a good one, Ibby. Ray saying Griffin Canning sounds like the name of every Orioles prospect ever. And I cannot prove that, but God damn it, that feels accurate.
That's is Ray a first time? I don't know if I've ever seen that name before. Ray?
I think Ray is back after a while. I remember seeing Ray. Welcome back to the show, Ray.
Welcome back to the show, Ray. That's a great comment.
That is an absolute great comment. Carson, speaking of great comments, who's pitching in spring training? Not Drew Smith. Just keeping it 100. Just not
as Drew always.
Smith. Maybe do you want to move on to the bullpen? I think now is probably a good time to do that.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
It seems like the starting rotation starting to take shape. We know now that Clay Holmes is pitching opening day and Kodai Senga is pitching the 5th game of the season.
Right.
They're doing that to give Kodai Senga a little bit more time to get his mechanics aligned. You know, he's a quirky dude when it comes to that stuff. He wants to feel 100% both in health. We saw it last year. And just feeling in sync with his body. I think this gives him a little bit more time to lock in. It'll also give him a little bit of extra days off here and there. They won't need a 6th starter potentially, Ibby, till I think Kodai's 3rd or 4th turn through the rotation. Mm-hmm. So that gives them a little bit of a boost as far as that's concerned. So it looks like it's going to be Holmes on opening day and then probably Peterson on game 2. They're either going to go Canning or Megill game 3. The other guy will go game 4. And then Kodai Senga will round out the 5 the first time through the rotation.
I do have. I just want to put it out there real quick from Keith over at Shea & Sons. He did post something 2 days ago saying how it was going to be Holmes on the 27th open with Houston, followed by Peterson, Megill, off day, Canning, Senga, Holmes again, off day, and then we could be looking at Peterson against Toronto in the home opener. That's the way he ended up laying it out, potentially.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense, honestly. Yeah. I think setting it up that way makes sense. So Tyler Megill is the guy who would be on the 3rd game, is what we're seeing. And I think with that, going against the Houston lineup, who's a little diminished from where they were a couple of years ago, but still very good, I would roll the dice on stuff, Ibby. I know, again, we waxed poetic about Griffin Canning for a couple minutes, but, you know, give me Tyler Megill. Let me see what he's got. This is also a guy who's pitched on opening day and been successful. Say what you want about Tyler Megill, not really a starter. He's a head case. He should be in the bullpen. He should be this. He should be blah, 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 whatever. But he is a guy who has pitched sometimes being thrust into these spots, especially early in the season, and pitch well. So I would rather him go out there against Mets' second series is against the Marlins, right?
Correct.
If I'm not mistaken. So I'd rather have Tyler Megill go against the Astros and give Griffin Canning the spot against the Marlins. That's me.
I agree.
I don't think I would get crazy if it was the other way around, but I would set it up that way. Give me the better stuff in the more hitters ballpark against the better lineup. Give me the guy who had the worst ERA last year. Try to get him, you know, a softer landing spot against what is going to be a abysmal Marlins team.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. I love the idea of going with Canning, Senga, and Holmes, where you can rely on the offense a little bit in those games as well to really create a cushion so those guys can go out there against the lesser lineup and find success. And I think that's a great landing spot for both Canning and Senga. And then you have an opportunity to do some damage on the back end with Holmes trying to close things out. So I like the way that lines up. And if Keith is proper with that, I agree with it wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and that means I had this starred for a while. Stanley Babbitt said, put Blackburn and Kranick in the bullpen. If they go with that rotation, and any, honestly, iteration of it, it seems like Paul Blackburn will be the guy who goes to the bullpen. I think Kranick is all but a lock at this point, Ibby. I think the wheels would have to come off. We talked about it a little bit on Friday and a little bit last week on Wednesday as well, where they've already started to position themselves, the Mets, to have Kranick have a spot by doing what they did with Sean Reed-Foley. And so I think Kranick is going to be your multiple inning, high leverage guy alongside of Jose Buto. But then I think Paul Blackburn becomes your long reliever, kind of in the place of what we had in Trevor Williams a few years ago, and the guy who could, piggyback a Griffin Canning or piggyback Tyler Megill if Megill is effective for 3 innings but throws 100 pitches, which is well within the range of possibility. Then you have Blackburn comes in, change of pace guy. He can go another 3 innings. Next thing you know, you're already into the 7th inning. If you have a lead, look, something that could have been a disaster is now good for you. So I also think there's a chance if Minaya is not ready when they need the 6th guy, Paul Blackburn, who's already on the roster, just slides out of the bullpen and into that 6th spot for a second while they figure out what they're doing. So before we talk more about Kranick and the back end of the bullpen, I think it makes a lot of sense to put, maybe Blackburn stuff doesn't play in the bullpen. I think that's fair. He doesn't have great
I agree,
strikeout stuff,
right?
But you're not asking him to be that. You're asking him to be Trevor Williams. And again, Trevor Williams didn't really have super great stuff either, and he was really effective in that role.
And I also think that you're going to be seeing Blackburn more in a situation if those back end guys stumble. Like, I don't think you're going to be seeing Blackburn on the nightly. Like, I think you're seeing him more in a situation where it calls for him to come in let's say the 3rd or 4th inning if something goes wrong, and he can go out there and give 2-3 innings just to provide some length to not burn out the pen. So I don't think you're going to be seeing him, that often. So I'm fine with him being in that role. And of course, like we've talked about Max Kranick a lot on this show this offseason and throughout this spring about what he's been able to do, and makes all the sense in the world for this team. So, there are some interesting spots remaining for the pen, but yeah, those two definitely there. And I think it makes the most sense for Blackburn in the early going to be a part of the pen.
Odd Villain calling him the real Mad Max. I like that.
That's right. That's right.
I like that. Maybe look, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but it is interesting. Obviously, people in the comments saying, Baty making great plays. He's going off offensively, which is good. Again, I don't like Baty, but I don't root for anybody who's on the Mets in any way, shape, or form to not succeed. So, if he's good, he's good. I'd rather be wrong. But this is an interesting one. This is what I mean that I don't want to spend a lot of time on. Shay saying the Mets are winning this game mainly by hitting straight to Altuve, learning a new position out in left field.
Yeah, he's struggling out there.
LMAO. Here's my question to you. I know that Altuve is a smaller guy, and I know that that's not ideal for a major league outfielder. Now, I've played a lot of outfield in my life. I'm probably around the same height as Altuve, but I don't play in the major leagues, so it's kind of irrelevant because I don't play with a lot of guys who are like, Tyler Megill 6'7". There's not a lot of guys who play in my softball league that's 6'7" or even 6'5" or whatever the case may be. So it's a different animal, but that has nothing to do with it. Is it weird to you that a guy who was an elite glove at second base, who is very athletic, I know he's older now and I know he's undersized for the position, but is it weird to you that he's been this bad in left field? It almost looks like he's never played baseball before. And he's a guy who I just should be better just by default.
I think that
it's a different position. I understand that. I'm not trying to be ignorant to the change.
No, of course not. No, I think that, I think the idea for him in left is based off of the Crawford boxes too. It's kind of a shorter left field, not much to cover unless we're really talking about hitting the gap. Look, someone said in the comments, and I've been saying it for a while, that the Astros have hands down the worst outfield in baseball, which I was shocked why they didn't do a better job of trying to fill in the gaps in certain spots. I know Cam Smith has a very strong opportunity to break camp with them, who's had a fantastic spring, guy they got back in the deal for Kyle Tucker. So he's going to be their right fielder. But in general, it's tough to translate from second to left regardless. Even though like I've been someone who's always said like you're a ball player. Like that's what I teach my kids too. It's like you're a ball player. You should be able to play any position that you're put at. But when you do something for a long time and then you're asked to change and you're a little bit older and you're smaller in stature and you're really asking someone to go out there and be major league top percentile here, major league caliber to play the outfield, it's tough, getting reads off the ball, understanding slice, where it goes, off of a lefty, off of a righty, towards the line, towards the gap, whatever it may be. There's a lot of questions that come into play. It's going to be a rough go for to him for taking something for someone as established as he is in the game to be willing to go out there and try something new because of the players that are now on his team. I think that's he should be commended for that, even though he is struggling.
Yeah, and look, Armand's saying his defense at second base has been regressing. I understand that too. And again, I'm not naive to the fact I played a lot of baseball my life. I still play softball frequently, multiple times, 4 times a week. And I played a lot of middle infield because I'm middle infield sized when I was growing up. And I played a lot of short and a lot of second. And then I, played a lot of outfield later. It is a different animal. And again, I never had to do it at the major league level where things are just amplified times a billion. But it's just funny to me to see him be so bad. And wasn't the original read on this, Ibby, and forgive my ignorance to the point of this, but wasn't the original situation Altuve saying, well, if they brought back Bregman, I'd be willing to move? Did he really need to move once they didn't bring back Bregman? I know they have Isaac Paredes playing third base now, but couldn't he have just kept him at second base?
I think the weird thing, and if I'm cutting out, I apologize. I think the weird thing is that I think he said that Cam Smith was playing so well, and Cam Smith's supposed to be a third baseman, but because the outfield is so bad, they're putting him in right field instead. So it's weird that they're going that route. But I guess things kind of changed once, they got Paredes to play third, you get Walker to play first. If you're not, originally the idea might have been they're going to put Cam Smith at third and move Paredes to second. I think that was talked about at 1.2. So I guess they're looking at it and saying, this is our best chance because Altuve's an athlete, so we can try and see if it works. It's going to take time. It's going to be a work in progress. Not everybody can be like Mookie Betts.
Yeah, I think that's what I was aware of. I wasn't sure. I was like, is there a prospect on this team? And I knew about Cam Smith. I was like, is there another person on this team that I'm not accounting for that is leading to this experiment? But I think based on everything you just said, there's enough moving parts where maybe they just abandon this. At the end of spring training, they're like, all right, you know what? We can put you back at second base, man. Because this is something that just whew. Ray saying Altuve can gain some speed if he removes the electronics that he's wearing. Good joke, harkening back to, Ibby, let's get back to the Mets conversation, obviously, talk about the bullpen. But before we do, there's a really nice comment from Mark Beretta, who says, wanted to let you two know that tonight's show is really strong and clearly shows the growth of your talent and, more importantly, togetherness. I thought that was a really nice comment, and I didn't want to.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you. That's awesome. If you're
Mark.
always hanging around in the comments, please, chime in more. We'd love to hear from you. And obviously I really appreciate a comment like that because it means a lot. It really does. Thank you.
Absolutely. Right as we start talking about that, we hit 250 live viewers. So shout out to all of you folks who are watching. 252 now, as I say that, across both Twitter and on the YouTube side of things. Ibby, you got about 13 minutes or so left to play with. Let's talk about this Mets bullpen. We talked about, how Paul Blackburn makes sense and what he can do is kind of this back and forth option, this long relief, akin to sort of what baseball was back in the day when you had the long relief pitcher coming out of the bullpen. It's kind of an old school position to occupy, but a good one and an important one where the Mets are currently constituted in the starting rotation, especially. But then you have the other side of things. You have the back end. You have guys who are going to be there. Diaz is going to be your closer. Ryan Stanek is going to be in the bullpen. After that, you start to look at some guys. It seems like AJ Minter is going to be ready. There was a little bit of talk.
I think he's going to be ready. Yeah.
He would be ready, whether or not he would make the team on opening day, or they would give him, hey, here's an extra week down in spring, whatever. And obviously relief pitchers don't really need to stretch out, but I'm going to assume now that he's gotten in a game, looked pretty good. Velocity was a bit down, but that's fine. I'll assume he's going to make the team. So Diaz, Stanek, Minter, that's your back end in some way, shape, or form. Those guys are a lock to make the team. Then you have to talk about a couple guys who are, out of options. Jose Buto is in the bullpen because he doesn't have options left.
It's 4.
Danny Young doesn't have options left. Is he going to be in the bullpen? I don't know. Huascar Braziban has pitched really well in spring. He
Plenty
has
of
a ton
options.
of options, though.
Plenty of options.
So
Yeah.
to me, that's going to work against him. Plus, he was
I agree.
really bad when they got him at the deadline last year. Max Kranick, I think, is paved the way. He's
Locked
going to be in the bullpen. So if you're going to say, you got Diaz,
5. Yeah.
Minter, Stanek, Buto, Kranick, Blackburn. That's 6 guys in the bullpen to go along with your 5 pitchers in the rotation for now. That is 11 total people. So you've got 2 spots open, right? 13 pitchers on a 26-man roster.
13.
So you've got 2 spots open right now. Danny Young's out of options. Reed Garrett has options, but was great for most of the year. And then you have Dediel Nunez, who has options and also has injury concerns. Looked good, though, really good in his spring debut.
Yeah.
Is he a guy that you hold back for injury concerns and allowing him to make sure that he's healthy and making sure that he can pitch on back-to-back days?
I think so.
That's what I know. I've been mentioning him a lot, but it's because I listen a lot. And, there's so many great content creators across the Mets space. But Ryan Finkelstein on Locked On Mets has been saying for months that Nunez isn't going to make the team because the Mets are going to hold him back to make sure he is 100% because he is a difference maker. Yes. He's a guy who can be your second best reliever. That's how good his stuff is.
Yeah, the stuff is there. Yeah.
So I think there's a pretty good chance that those last 2 spots go to Reed Garrett, who deserves it, and probably Danny Young because he's out of options. And then you start Nunez in AAA.
I think ultimately, I think that makes the most sense. I do. I think those are the 2 that close out this pen, allow him to work back up. Because like you said, the stuff that he has, he can easily slot into that back end and be something special for this team, but they got to be careful with it. They want to make sure he stays healthy. So I really think those are the 2 that make it, you hold him back and then you go from there. And then, like we said, once the season starts, everything just becomes in motion when it comes to the bullpen. And we've seen Stearns, how he's always quick on the trigger. If something's working, something's not working. And obviously health has been a big concern for this team and taking care of players. So making sure that he is okay, that being Nunez before they call, I think is going to be a big point of focus for this team, because having someone like that in the bullpen takes your bullpen from great, or I should say from really good or really strong to great. So I do think he is held back to start for the first, handful of weeks of the season, at least.
Yeah. It's funny because as I was listening to Ryan over the last couple of weeks, and he was talking so much about Nunez being held back, at first I was angry, Ibby. Not angry at him, just angry conceptually, because his rationale, which I understand, was, this guy, you want to save the bullets that this guy has because of how important he is. And for a little bit of the time, the flip side thinking that I had in my brain was, well, don't waste the bullets in AAA. If you want to save the bullets, use the bullets in the major league roster. But if you think about Nunez and what he actually has to offer the Mets, it's not about necessarily this inevitable injury that's going to happen or this inevitable downturn in stuff because of arm fatigue or whatever. It's trying to make sure that he is healthy enough to give you the best version of what he offers on the major league team. And I'll bring up the point I just made a couple moments ago as the example, which is pitching in back-to-back days. If Nunez is going to be lights out, but is going to pitch a game and then can't pitch for 2 or 3, that doesn't help you. If you need to build him up to a point where he can get there, you have to let him get there first, because we look no further than what happened last year with regards to Buto. Buto was lights out, but even if he pitched an inning, he couldn't pitch for 3 days after that. So, look, if the Mets, as always, I'm not copping out here, I'm going to defer to David Stearns. If the Mets think Nunez is ready, put Nunez in the bullpen to start. I don't care. You
Yes.
could lose Dan. You could
Right.
lose Danny Young.
Yes.
Obviously, you could lose.
I
Danny
agree with
Young.
that. Yes.
But if they don't think so, and that's the only reason why, guys. So that's why, like, Hebrew saying, bring Nunez up to the club. If he's going to get hurt in AAA, he'll get hurt in AAA. He'll get hurt in the major leagues. It's all the same. I agree with that. That's kind of my counterpoint. But my point is this. If the only way Nunez, with his stuff and what he did last year, the only way he's not making this team to start is because the Mets personnel who make this decision, from the president of baseball ops all the way through the front office, all the way through the training staff, all the way through the doctors, all the way through the manager and everybody there, the coaches, they just know what we don't know from seeing him every day. And they just know it's like, not yet. He's just not ready yet. It's not the best for him, and it's not the best for us by proxy. So, I'm okay with it. I'm more okay with it than I was even a week ago. A week ago, 2 weeks ago, a month ago, I was like, man, this guy's got to be on the team. If he's healthy, I don't care what that means. But if he can only pitch, once a week, I'm exaggerating a little bit. If he can only pitch once every 3 days, that's not enough.
Yeah, I think that it's if this team was in a different spot, I think people would have a much more critical take on it. But because this bullpen is where it is, I'm okay with saying, if you want to keep him back to make sure he's proper, so by the time you do bring him here, he's good to go moving forward. Saying that, best we can when it comes to pitchers nowadays. But I think everyone knows what I'm trying to get across here. Wait for that moment, and then he's here. It doesn't have to be opening day. It doesn't. And like I said, I always go back to what Stern said in that interview or that presser. It's like, don't be married to what opening day is. Things change. It's one day. Things change the moment that game ends. So again, like, if it makes the most sense to keep him healthy for the long term, I'm all about it. Do what's best for him, because having him being a difference maker in the long run is what matters the most.
Yeah, absolutely. Jump back into the comments here. Ibby, I'm not trying to dox you.
Jesus.
GSD over on Twitter.
It's a great open.
Wants to know, what's Ibby's town between the internet and the property tax? Forget it.
Actually, I'm not going to say where I am, but the property tax isn't that. The reason why I chose to live where I live is because the property tax isn't that bad in comparison to all the things that are around me. It's actually, affordable. I'll put it that way. But yes, my internet needs a lot of help. A lot.
Ibby, Charlie with a good point, saying if you're going to hold Nunez back, the idea of a second lefty is not crazy, especially when you're talking about a guy who had some success last year and does have good stuff in Danny Young. And I think that's where it becomes, again, a good problem to have, where you say, you know what, if you bring up Nunez, it's what I said in the first half about Canario and Marte. If you bring up Nunez and he gets hurt right away or is ineffective or whatever right away, then you've lost Danny Young. Now, they have other places they could go, but then they've lost the ability to use Danny Young more than likely. But if you bring up Danny Young and you just hold off on Nunez, even if it's just for a week, you can always go to Nunez. It's kind of the opposite problem that they have with Marte and Canario, because neither Nunez nor Danny Young is making $20 million like Marte is, where if Marte's healthy, he's got to be on the team.
Right. No, yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Like, nothing I can really add to it, but yeah.
Carson doesn't like Danny Young, so
Carson doesn't like a lot of people. So, finding things that he likes is a lot more difficult, because finding things he dislikes is a lot easier.
Odd villain,
Carson.
Odd villain saying, so you live in Camden, and then Ibby
I do not live in Camden.
Not Camden. So basically what's going to happen now over the next couple of weeks, people are just going to keep naming
this game.
They're just going to be naming towns in New Jersey, trying to figure out where Ibby lives.
Now I got Shay coming after you saying Ibby broadcasts outside of a house, hence the brick wall, trying to steal the Starbucks Wi-Fi. Look, man, I do what I can. I do what I can. I do what I can, man. I do what I can afford to.
He does what he can. Okay. He does.
I do what I can. I'm a teacher. Again, I'm a teacher living in New Jersey with a house and kids. I'm doing what I can, man. I'm trying here. I'm trying.
Ibby, before we get out of here, I think we are now in a spot where, again, there's not a lot of surprises here, but I think we can, and I've started to type it up, put out our 26-man roster prediction. This is kind of the last time you can do it because next week you're going to know by the time, it's going to be opening day eve. There's not going to be any surprises at that point. So I'm trying to make sure that I get all these names out here that I think are going to be here that we were just alluding to. I don't want to put words in your mouth in case, you
I feel like we're
going
to be on this. I feel like we're going to be on the same page, but yeah, I'll follow you and I'll agree or disagree.
All right. So I think this totals 26. I just did this on the fly. Full transparency to everybody who watches live. Zero Cool for the Wi-Fi, throwing down a $5 super chat. Thank you, Zero.
Thank you, Zero. I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much.
Ibby, just so you guys know, Ibby does not. I don't take a salary, and Ibby doesn't take a salary from the super chats or for any brand deals that we have until Ibby pays those hamsters that control his Wi-Fi what they're worth. All the money goes immediately back into the Wi-Fi.
Oh my God.
We do not take a salary, but thank you, Zero.
Appreciate you, Zero,
for the
$5
awesome, super chat. And Ray saying, smash that like button. Yes, please do. Before we get out of here, smash the like button. Ibby, if you can, as I read off these names, just if you want to like count them down, if you have a piece of paper, just make sure that we have 26 because I did it kind of on the fly based on our conversation.
Yep.
So this is our roster prediction for the Mets for 2025 on opening day. And then, like Ibby said, after that, everything's fluid, man. You could see a guy be here on opening day and then they get sent down the next day. Honestly.
Easily.
There are some locks. We'll do it by position, infield, outfield, catcher, rotation, bullpen.
Gotcha.
There are some obvious locks. So Alonso.
1.
Baty.
2.
Lindor.
3.
Vientos.
4. Acuna.
Right?
5.
You don't think it's going to be Walton. We agree on Baty and Acuna both making the team.
Yes, so we got
outfield. 5. Nimmo looks like he's healthy. Obviously, if he is, he's a lock. Siri,
6.
Soto.
7. 8.
Jesse Winker, as long as he's healthy,
9.
looks like he is. Marte, as long as he's healthy, looks like he is.
10.
Tyrone Taylor.
11.
Then you got Luis Torrens. He's going to be your catcher, your starting catcher
12.
for now. We both think Hayden Sanger
13
is going to be your backup.
Correct.
I think my video is frozen, which is weird, but you can still hear me. So that's
I got you. Yeah.
Cool. Then in the starting rotation, 5-man for now, Clay Holmes, David Peterson, Tyler Megill, Griffin Canning, Kodai Senga.
Gotcha. All 5.
And that leaves us with a bullpen of Paul Blackburn, Edwin Diaz, Ryan Stanek, AJ Minter, Max Kranick, Jose Buto, Reed Garrett, and then that final spot should be one left. Danny Young, or you think Daniel Nunez? Who's getting that last spot?
I'm going to go Young for now.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be Young
now,
just because of the injury concerns for Nunez. Also, Ibby, again, taking into account relief pitchers don't need to be stretched out the way starters do, but Nunez has only appeared in one game, right?
One day. That's the whole thing. If it was more than one, I would change my mind, but it's only been one.
Now, he's probably working on the backfields, probably throwing simulated games. It's not like he's just chilling, hanging out somewhere, not doing anything. He's doing stuff. But I think, Danny Young has been more in games. They have taken a little bit of a seat back, Ibby, with Danny Young the last couple days.
Yeah.
He has not made it into a lot of games. That either shows you that they're walking away from him, which I doubt, or that he's a lock to make the team and they're kind of just chilling for a minute because they know he's going to make the team at least on opening day. So I think that was 26, right? You
5, 10, 15, 20, 23, 26. Yes.
Perfect. So the only real question marks as far as this team is concerned right now, I think, are Danny Young, Hayden Sanger, and Luis Angel Acuna. I think those are the only positions that you can debate. Again, aside from health. I think everybody else is going to make this team. I think those are the only ones. And I think I feel confident in our official projection, and we could tweet this out later so that everybody can see it and reference it. But I feel good in our projection. But if you told me we wake up to record this show next week and it's Nunez on the team and not Young, or it's, Tomas Nito, or they go with Jackson Reitz instead of Sanger or something,
right,
I wouldn't be shocked.
No, neither would I. Neither would I.
Everybody else is making this team. Even Brett Baty is making this team. Griffin Canning's going to be a starter. Paul Blackburn, if he continues to be healthy, is going to be in the bullpen. Like, there's really not a lot of questions around here right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think the ones that we highlighted there are the only question marks. And could something crazy happen? Yeah, of course, anything can happen. We'll see what happens over the next week. Granted, everyone stays healthy, which we put out as prefaces because we believe said player is healthy at the moment that we're recording this. So, Nimmo is healthy right now. Marte is healthy right now. Injuries there, IL stints there could lead to a Canario making this team for all we know. So things are fluid until they are not, until things are ready to go here, or I should say in Houston, once this entire thing kicks off for real. But I think that the guys you highlighted are the three that are the only ones that are truly in question. And honestly, I would even say it's just the two, because I don't think, Acuna is that much in question.
I would agree with that. For me, the only reason why, like, just them having Walton there, the presence still being there in the big league camp, is the only thing that gives me a brief second of pause. But otherwise, I agree with you. And again, there are some people here on this list. Anybody can suffer an injury at any point. That's how sports works. There are some guys on this list that are maybe a little bit more prone to a setback or an injury, right? Like, there's a chance that Nimmo plays tomorrow and it comes up lame. There's a chance that Marte, who's just effectively always hurt at this point in his career, like perpetually, that he can't go, and then it opens up a spot for Canario. There's a chance, I don't think so, maybe outside chance that they do hold AJ Minter back a week or whatever the case. But I think that's pretty much what we're looking at. And it looks like Pete Alonso just hit a 3-run home run, the first of spring training for him, and it is now 7-0 Mets in a meaningless game. But you know what? Pete hadn't hit a lot of power, obviously, first home run of spring. So it is nice to see him do that. Ibby, this is a good comment to get us out of here. Zero Cool saying, Danny Young, number 81 in your program, number 81 in your hearts.
Too good. The last thing I'll get out of here is my final thought, as we're over, 2 hours already. Shout out to the 262 now that are here with us, rocking on a Wednesday. As always, appreciate every single one of you. I did want to just say that if anyone watched the spring breakout game, a lot of fun, a lot of fun seeing some of the guys that are going to be mainstays potentially for this team moving forward into the future. I was very pumped up to see what Jonah Tong did. I think Jonah Tong is a name that you're going to see climb up the ranks of not only the Mets system this year, but the overall ranks across baseball. I think he's going to be a special pitcher. I'm very pumped up for him. Obviously, we all talk about the likes of Brandon Sproat and Nolan McLean, but seeing Tong go out there and perform for 2 innings, have 3 strikeouts, looks very clean in his delivery. The stuff that he has, he got up to 98 miles an hour. You love to see it. The big red dog cranking a bomb of a home run. Great to see. And of course,
lefty too, right?
Yeah. And I obviously have to mention Carson, because Jet Williams was able to get out there and steal a bag, which is always fun to see him motoring around the base to then double to put him in scoring position to see. And the only thing I wanted to put out is I wanted to just reiterate again, thank you to because I think back to how long the show's been going on to this point, and how I said to John the first time I spoke to him for a half hour before we actually went live the next to him, just be patient with me. I think I can really do this. I know that you do stuff like this but I honestly feel that if you give me time, we can really make something here. And hopefully, I'm making not only him proud, but the fans, but the people here that are with us on the weekly, that enjoy this, that have helped us grow this. I appreciate you. And I know we have fun about the Wi-Fi and stuff like that, but I am trying my best over here to try and improve every single time that we are out here doing this show on a Wednesday. So thank you, Mark. That comment means more than you know. Shout out to all of you, 260 that have joined us here this week. You're all awesome. Next week, a lot of fun. I won't bury it. I won't say it. I'll let my partner put over what we are doing next week, as it is the lead-in to the 2025 season. You all rock, LGM.
Ibby, thank you for the you do a great job. Absolutely fantastic. Super proud to have you as my partner on the show for as long as we have been doing this. For those of you who go back to the beginning, as we're about ready to embark on another season, don't mean to get too sappy here, but you know, Ibby and I never met before we did this show. Did not meet in person, didn't know each other. And, you know, one of the old networks that we worked at was like, oh, you know, I think this will be a good pairing and everything. And we're like, yeah, cool, let's try it. We hit it off immediately. Our, you know, thought process on how to do a show, our thought process on the Mets, our thought process on, you know, what our fandom looks like. A lot of things aligned, so it made it really easy to do the show. But I knew you'd be great at it from Jump Street, and you know, watching you, you know, continue to grow into the role has been really awesome for me. And you know, it's cool. It's great to be partners with you as we get ready to do another long season of Mets baseball. And to your point, we always have fun. I don't know if we did this right from the very beginning, but we definitely did it going into season 2 that we covered, which is our bold prediction show. It's not going to be wall-to-wall bold predictions. It's not going to be, you know, hot takes for the sake of hot takes. But Ibby and I come up with usually around 5. Sometimes it's one less or one more or whatever. 5 bold predictions each. And we do not tell each other what those bold predictions are going to be before the show starts, and we do it in real time. We show all of you, we have them written down ahead of time, we show them to the screen, but Ibby and I do not go over any of this. We come up with our own stuff, and it's fun because sometimes it overlaps almost like identically, essentially, and sometimes it overlaps where it's like, I said this about this player and everybody said this about this player, and they're almost the same, but they're not the same. And then it's like, you know, is one of us right and not the other? Did we pick the wrong thing? Yeah. Is anybody going to pick Griffin Canning to win the Cy Young? Who knows? But
maybe
no,
you got to tune in.
And with the live chat, as always, you guys, all 260 plus of you here today, with the live chat, you guys can get involved too. So once we start getting into the bold predictions part, which is usually in the second half of the show, once we start rolling through that, we're going to take your bold predictions as well. So whether you're, you know, messing around like Odd Villain is here saying Griffin Canning, Cy Young, or you have a really good, you know, a really solid bold prediction that you want to jump out on a limb. And honestly, maybe that is Odd Villain's real bold prediction for the year. It would be bold. It would be very, very,
it's very bold.
Very bold. But no, this has been absolutely great. We appreciate all the love. So don't forget to tune in next week. It will be opening day eve for Till Mets Do Us Part, which is always a huge celebration. We'll do our bold predictions. We want to hear from you. We'll talk about whatever else is going on in the world of Mets news at the time, of course. And if you missed any of this show, as soon as we are done with the live stream, you can go back on our YouTube channel, which is appropriately called Till Mets Do Us Part. You can watch whatever you missed. You can do that this week. You can go back into the archives and watch anything that we have done in the past. Subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on so you never miss an opportunity to know when we will be going live. And if you can't do any of that, don't worry. We've got you covered on the audio side as well. Starting tomorrow morning, this show will be available on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and all the places where you get your podcasts. I'm John. That's Ibby. 1 week away from Mets baseball for real. Juan Soto taking his first official at bat as a New York Met in a game that counts. We're looking forward to it. LFGM. This is Till Mets Do Us Part. We will see you all next week. Peace.